meeting law.
Yes.
We will begin tonight with comments from the public. Looks like we have 6 of them. I'm just going to read our standard statement here. Board policy A0107 states no person may speak more than once to an issue or for a period longer than 5 minutes, except upon the consent of a majority of the district board. No more than 3 people may be heard to one side of an issue, except upon the consent of a majority of the district board. I also want to add the following tonight. While the Wisconsin open meetings law does not require the board to hear public comments, the board believes that hearing from the public is important, but there are some rules that apply. So first, all speakers are reminded that civility and courtesy are essential to the functioning of any governing body. Interruptions and demonstrations will not be allowed. Regarding personnel matters, MATC has a process for aggrieved individuals to file a complaint. Such complaints are fully investigated and findings shared confidentially with the complainant and the accused. Disputed outcomes are subject to a formal appeals process, including, in some circumstances, final appealable review by the board. To protect the privacy interests of the individuals involved and to protect the board's appellate jurisdiction, the board will not engage in public discussion regarding any personnel issues. Negative comments identifying specific personnel are not appropriate for presentation to the board in public session. Let's start at the top of the list. I think the first person signed up is Marta Prado. Please come on up and take a seat. You want to come up together?
Yes.
That's fine.
One more chair, please.
I think there's one right there.
Okay, thank you. I have a letter that I want to pass around.
Why don't you give that to
Sure.
Beth Schultz over here?
Sure. Do you need a copy?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
sorry, can you pass it
Wait,
around
I'll
now?
pass it around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourselves individually as you talk? Is that how you'd like to do it? Okay. So who's going to begin?
I'm gonna read the letter. We're gonna introduce you.
Hello, my name is Marta Prado. I'm a student of ECE. I almost graduate in this May.
Hi, my name is Veronica Rojo. I'm a student. I'm in the program to the ECE, and I graduate too in the next month.
My name is Felipe Beltran. I'm in the marketing program and I will graduate this semester too.
Okay.
I want to explain something about the letter. I had to write this in with pencil because I don't know that I didn't print out the printer, all the information. So
Don't worry about it.
So I'm gonna start reading the letter. I'm a little nervous, so when I'm a little nervous, my English is like very good.
Your English is great. Just go ahead.
Dear members of the MATC board, my name is Felipe Beltran. I am currently a student here at MATC, alongside my fellow students Marta Prado, Veronica Rojo. We are former student leaders and we are preparing to graduate this spring semester. We wish to express our profound concerns about the unexpected departure of Dr. Eva Martinez-Paules, who most recently served as the interim Vice President of Enrollment and Retention and was formerly the Vice President and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. This development is particularly disconcerting given MATC's goals as aspiring Hispanic serving institution and raises questions about the ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at our institution. Dr. Martinez-Paules was instrumental in our academic and leadership experiences. During her tenure in various roles, specifically when she was the Vice President and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, she and her office supported and sponsored several key events that significantly contributed to a sense of community and inclusivity at MATC. These events include the Women's History Month event in 2022. Her office and her sponsored and supported for us to go to the AHI Annual Conference in 2022. the Haku Conference in 2022, El Día del Niño in the year 2022 and 2023, Hispanic Heritage Month for 3 years straight, in 2021, 2022, and 2023. The Day of the Dead, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Del Convivio Navideño in 2021, 2022, and 2023. The Cesar Chavez event that was just recently, she participated as a speaker supporting our event. El Mercadito in 2023. She also gave us opportunities to the three of us to go to our first galas. That was the HPGM Gala in 2023 and the Market Gala recently, last month, this year, 2024. Dr. Martinez-Paules' involvement in these initiatives demonstrated her dedication to fostering an education environment enriched by diversity and inclusivity. Her efforts help us grow not only as leaders, but also as professionals, shaping our overall development and empowering us to pursue our goals with confidence. As we approach our graduation, we are particularly concerned about maintaining strong Hispanic leadership at MATC. The presence of influential Hispanic leaders like Dr. Martinez-Paules has been inspiring, and we believe is crucial for the future success of students at MATC. We respectfully request that the board consider the broader implications of such significant changes to leadership, particularly concerning the representation and support of diversity at our institution. Thank you for considering our concerns. We hope for thoughtful actions we will ensure MATC continues to uphold its commitments to a diverse and supportive education environment. Sincerely, Felipe, Marta, and Veronica. The next page is a personal reflection letter that I wrote myself. I'm gonna read this out. Almost 2 years ago, I heard a student say, "I am about to graduate and I'm leaving MATC disappointed." When the student said that, I was very confused about why the student said that, because the student was being given the same opportunities as me during that time. So during that time, I didn't see a reason for the student to feel disappointed. A few days later, I kept thinking about what the student said, and at that time, I promised myself that when I graduate and left MATC, I was going to feel proud. But then, when I learned that Dr. Martinez-Paules was no longer at MATC, I felt very sad, and I started to feel disappointed about why MATC did this to her. I tried to convince my heart not to make me feel disappointed with MATC, and more because I'm close to my graduation like the student I mentioned above. But then I understood that the reason I was going to keep feeling like this is because Dr. Martinez-Paules had a big impact on me, and it marked the loss of a significant mentor who had profoundly influenced my growth academically, personally, and professionally. I always wanted to share this story, and now seems like the right time. Thank you for your time, Felipe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that was it. So, I don't know what's next.
Well, we cannot respond because this is not an item on the agenda. Do Marta or Veronica have anything additional to say?
No.
All right, well then, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Next is. I'm having a little trouble reading the handwriting. Is it Nefataria Gordon? There we go. Please tell me how to pronounce your first name.
Sound it out correctly. It's Nefataria.
Nefataria. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. All right, so I live at West Town Green, and there are a couple of things I want to talk about. When I first started, it was around like COVID in 2020, with my welcome letter and everything. When my funds went towards my rent, I had left over $3,000, and as a college student, that's a lot of money after classes and rent. Now in 2024, I'm now in a studio apartment, and I only was left with less than $1,200. And that really sucks, because first we had an extra charge that was added. There's a $30 electric charge, and then also for all studios, there's an extra $35 charge. But we were told that it was all inclusive. So in total for a studio, I paid $901. And also my air conditioner does not work. So the extra $35 I'm paying I have not got the benefit as of yet. And summer is coming. Also, I had experience being a CA there, which was okay, because I'm an overcompensator, which means I pull the weight of others because I don't like complaining. And I know if I do it, it's gonna be perfect. So what I feel with my experience, we could do better support training for CAs as in conflict of interest, because we do live downtown and there's a lot of homeless people. And no matter the race or the age of the college students, we accommodate for people. If somebody's coming in with us or you have bags, we'll open the door for you. That's not really safe because we don't know for sure if they stay in the building. I have come across a couple instances that I had to ask homeless people to leave in the winter. It sucks in my heart, but it's like the safety of the building is more important. I didn't have training on that. I just had to, put my heart out there and be like, hey, excuse me, with my, because I'm less than 120 pounds, telling a grown man or a grown woman that is bigger than me, you have to be removed from the building. And I'm not a police officer, public safety, nothing. I'm just a CA. Also with conflict of interest when situations occur in West Town Green, the approach to it is more, I like to use the word projection. Instead of hearing somebody out, they're basically tell you what they feel, and that's not really a safe environment, especially when you're a college student. I would rather have somebody sit me and my roommate down instead of someone taking a roommate over another roommate, because we're training people to be independent. So to sit down and have them talk to someone, a counselor, would be great. I don't know the situation of conversation, how you guys talk, MATC talks to Founders 3, but I would feel if counselors would be able to, have whoever number at Founders 3, just to talk like, okay, if something happened, we can have a virtual conversation and talk it out, instead of someone getting kicked out or someone just messing up their credit. Because also what I loved about West Town Green is when you get an apartment, it's in your name. So if you go to school for 4 years, your financial aid is covering your rent. You're having, now that looks great in your credit, great credit. That's a great asset, but it's just a lot of loopholes in between that. Also, with the orientation of when new people come into the building, if we could tell them, hey, we do have FAFSA, we do have SNAP, we do have these things. Yes, I understand we do have a poster board, but if you know anything about education, I'm in early childhood education, not everybody learns by reading. Some people actually need it visual. Some people actually need you to come and like break it down, because now everybody wants to be an adult. So we should approach all the West Town Green residents as adults and try to help them get better for the long run. And then last but not least, I want to speak about the sensory sensitivities of a neurodivergent diversity. I want to open that chapter for us. I actually ran into a couple students and I talked to their parents. One of the students, she actually leaves. She pays rent, but she leaves because of the sensory issues and that her other roommates are not neurodivergent. And I feel like we should have an opportunity to be around each other instead of being in the masses, just to get us used to just living by ourselves and doing it by ourselves. Because if you know anything about being or being around people that are neurodivergent, we just want to be independent. We just want to be heard because all our lives, our parents are in control. So it's like our time to be in control. So if West Town Green can open that sensitivity for us, that'll be super great, because it's hard always explaining yourself to a person that's not neurodivergent, because you're looking like, yeah, you're not trying hard enough, but you don't know what's mentally in my head. So you don't, and I'm trying. So I just feel like if we could change those things, it'll be a better flow from living at your parents, off your parents, to being independent. Yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have a presentation later tonight about some of the issues around this. You might want to stick around. Next is Elsa Marks.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? It's me. Hey, I'm here tonight to talk specifically about the Student Resource Center and not West Town Green in particular. I'm gonna start by saying that I love MATC. I attend here on purpose. It wasn't something anyone forced me to do. I'm very happy to be here, and I've actually been able to get a few of my close friends and my partner, people I know outside of here, to start attending MATC. It's something I believe in. I believe in the mission of a affordable school teaching real careers that benefit our community. So I've been very happy to be a part of this. What I think people sometimes miss about college, though, is that college is an opportunity to get to a place where you're stable. And in that process, sometimes people miss that college students are not always able to achieve stability in that process. And I think that mindset sometimes leaves students behind in a way that's not always productive. Thankfully, MATC has the Student Resource Center on campus. They're at the front line of serving students and helping students get in a position where they're able to graduate and help stabilize students. According to the Wisconsin Policy Forum, there is where they did a big survey about college students. That includes not just technical students, but technical students have a need gap of, on average, $8,104. That is after financial aid. So students are attending school, and those needs include housing, food, etc. So we know that the need is incredible. It's incredibly great. And so while I think the Student Resource Center, all the staff, the 3 staff members there are incredible, and the CAs are all wonderful, and they always make you feel welcome, and it's a good place to be. I do believe that the college is capable of supporting the student resource staff more. I think there could be more staffing, and I think that there are models in other colleges that the MATC could follow up with. Something in specific that I'm thinking about, and it pertains to West Town Green, of course, is an office of housing. And so what would be beyond just helping out people on campus who are living at MATC? It would be able to help connect with community resources, something that they already do at the college. They would be able to help students who are signing leases to understand that process as part of the growing. This morning in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, there was actually an article about how Milwaukee is one of the fastest increasing rent markets in the country. It's topical, it's things people are experiencing, and students are also being hit by that. So having a dedicated housing resource office would offer students more education and more support in a way that would help them succeed and finish their graduation. And retention is important, and helping students stabilize in that way is super, I think, an important basic need. So these exist in other universities, and they can take on other responsibilities of the Student Resource Center. This also frees up the staff at the Student Resource Center to continue to expand, to continue to meet all sorts of different needs. And I just really like them, and I appreciate them being a part of the campus. And I'd like to see all the support that they can get, as they are the ones who are doing a lot of the work supporting students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bara Omari. Welcome.
Good evening, District Board members and Dr. Martin. This evening, I will be reading an email that Milwaukee campus ESL faculty wrote last week to our leaders in response to last month's community education report. While we couldn't all be here, the letter was co-written by all full-time downtown faculty. We are currently awaiting a response. As faculty members at the downtown campus, we were dismayed to hear that the work of the Community Education Action Plan is set to be discontinued in the next 2 months, particularly because there was no mention of the downtown campus. In the CEAP updates, and for us and our students, the work of the CEAP is far from done. Among the projects are 2 from the March updates that we hope you can provide more information on. The updates from other campuses included positive steps for community education at those locations. The one-stop shop at Walker Square will make testing and registration easier for our students and is a great step forward. Similar plans were mentioned for Oak Creek and Mequon, but there was no mention of the downtown, the only campus where ESL students currently need to move between 3 buildings 3 floors, and 3 departments in order to register for classes. We request an update on the progress toward the goal of a one-stop shop at the downtown campus. We appreciate the acknowledgement that more staff is needed at all of the campuses to support community ed, and that 2 new full-time faculty will be hired for ESL beginning in May to replace 2 upcoming retirements. While this is good news, we have yet to hear official word on where those positions will be placed. This troubles us because staffing at the downtown campus is an emergency situation. Here are the facts. Since 2020, downtown ESL has lost 3 full-time faculty positions through retirement that have not been replaced. Since 2020, 44 part-time faculty have been hired for the ESL department. Only 6 have been assigned downtown. Currently, LTEs are assigned to 9 spring 2024 downtown sections, and these positions expire at the end of this semester. Staffing shortages remain an ongoing disservice to students. Downtown fall and spring 24 semesters started with 5 unassigned sections where multiple faculty were assigned to each course in fall 24, resulting in further challenges for those students. Downtown summer 2025 scheduling currently has 5 unassigned sections, and downtown fall schedule currently has 16 unassigned sections. For summer and fall, we've been instructed not to register students in unassigned sections, which is over 25% of the downtown course offerings. Despite these many challenges, enrollment downtown has been increasingly steady, and we currently have the highest enrollment of the 4 campuses in Walker Square. We are very proud of our students and our program downtown, but the organizational and staffing barriers we continue to face are reaching a breaking point. The consequences fall on our students. Eager students are attending classes without permanent teachers. If we are not allowed to register students in unassigned classes, the program at the downtown campus is essentially being curtailed. Those who live closest to downtown and want classes here will be forced to drive or bus to outlying campuses in order to further their English language learning goals. For the above reasons, we request a public commitment that at minimum, the 2 in-person full-time faculty positions will be assigned to the downtown campus in order to provide our students with the high-quality learning environment they deserve, and a commitment to address inequitable faculty and staff distribution. We appreciate your efforts so far to increase resources for the ESL department as a whole, but we seek reassurance that the secured resources will be distributed equitably among campuses. We would be happy to schedule a meeting with you to discuss these and other concerns at your convenience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the last that we have signed up for public comments. Thank you all for addressing the board and sharing your concerns. We will not be responding to any matter in adherence to the state of Wisconsin open meetings law, which prevents a governmental body from discussing any specific item that was not publicly noticed on the agenda. Move on to the next agenda item, which is approval of minutes from 4 prior meetings, including the regular board meeting on March 26th and 3 special board meetings. I'd like to get a motion, if I could have a motion for approval of all of them in a second, and then we can see if there's any discussion about any one item. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Director Burris has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Mendieta Ramos. Any discussion about the minutes from the March 26th board meeting? The others are pretty formalistic. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes for the remaining 3 meetings? There being none, we have a motion from Director Burris, a second from Director Mendieta Ramos. With all those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, indicate that by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Let's move on to the next item, which is approval of the consent agenda items. Again, may I have a motion for approval of all of the consent agenda items in a second, and we'll see if there's any specific questions.
I'll move approval.
Director Baker has moved approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Baker, a second by Director Case. Are there any items that anyone would like to have pulled out of the consent agenda items and discussed specifically? Any other questions or comments about any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none, we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Case. Would all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items indicate that by saying aye?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next are the board action items. First up is resolution F 308 04 24, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million in general obligation promissory notes, series 2023-2024K of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District of Wisconsin. Mr. Fisher, welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the motion before we chat about it.
Yep.
And I would second that.
Thank you.
Sounds like a grand idea.
Let's take that as a motion in a second. You're getting ever more subtle in your corrections of the chair's errors, so thank you.
Just give me the gavel.
Tell us about this morning's auction, please.
It went very well. So over the last months of the last net, there's been a slew of economic data that's been released, which has come in a little bit stronger than projected. So a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks in the market. So you've seen it be pretty volatile, and the thought process here is that the Fed now, instead of doing 5 rate cuts like we had projected at the beginning of the year, is reduced that cut projection down to 3, and now it's down to potentially 2 for this year. With if things continue to come in stronger than anticipated, could be no cuts this year. So even with all that, the sale this morning, public sale, went very well. So I'll run through the results and ask me any questions if you have any. So this morning, we received 4 bids, with the low bid by TD Securities at 3.49%. It was nice to see 4 bidders show up for the sale. The last sale, we also had 4 bidders, and that one came in at around 3.2%. So you can see that with the new economic data and the reduced rate cuts, that's what's pushed up interest rates a little bit over the last month. When you look at page 3, this is the general obligation promissory notes, series 2023-24K, in the amount of $1,500,000. It's going to close and settle May 8th of 2024, and maturity from June 1 of 2025 to 2028, and first interest being December 1 of 2024. Non-callable, and the rating received was a AA1, which is the same rating you've had for many years, and so that was good news to see that affirmed. And again, the low interest rate of 3.49%. The following page gives the long-term plan of finance, which is something that my team and Eva and her team constantly take a look at and model out. We've got essentially one financing left in this fiscal year, and then it'll flip over to the next fiscal year. But when we look at the projections and hitting the targets, everything is right on track. So very good news there. And then the last several pages, that's the Moody's rating report. When you look at this compared to last month, really nothing has changed.
Any questions from anyone on the board in the room? Any questions from any of the directors online?
Yes, last meeting, which company won the bid for us?
Yeah, great question. It was Fidelity.
So how come they didn't bid this month?
That's a good question. They were the only one really that didn't show up on this particular sale. We had TD, Bernardi, and Huntington show up on the last sale, but for some reason they passed this time.
Okay.
Any other questions from the directors online? I have one. I'd like you to explain something to us. I'm looking at this chart, the financial plan, and specifically the row that says average 4.29%, average 4.49%, et cetera. What is that an average of?
So when municipal bonds are sold in the marketplace, they have a coupon rate and a yield. And the coupon rate is essentially the interest that you're going to be paying on the financing. Well, when the interest rate yield comes in lower than the coupon rate, a premium is generated. And that premium is essentially can be used to pay interest. It's essentially a bid premium is what it's called. It's put in the debt service fund and used towards making your future interest payments, offsetting the levy. So in this particular case, you receive a premium, and that can be essentially offset your future interest cost. So that's where the interest rate that I tell you is, 3.59, but we are using 5% for our projections going forward, hoping that you do receive a premium, lower interest rates than the coupons. So that essentially being conservative in our projections.
Any questions about that or anything else? Director Waramukundi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said it is non-callable. Can you briefly describe what that means?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when municipal bonds are sold in the marketplace, if they have, say, a 10-year maturity, typically you can put a call feature in there in 7 or 8 years, and it doesn't cost a premium to do that. When you have an issuance that has less than, say, 7 years, then it doesn't make sense to put in a call feature, because then you'd be paying a much higher interest rate to have the flexibility to essentially refinance or pay it off.
So
the call feature gives you that flexibility to refinance or pay it off when you hit that particular period of time. Since it's so short, it doesn't make sense to pay that premium, because it typically wouldn't make sense to refinance for economic savings.
And when you say that these are non-callable, it means that we can't pay them off early, essentially.
Okay, and our time period is 3 years?
It is from 2025 to 2028, so essentially 4.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to approve the sale by Director Baker and a second by Director Case. Would you please call the roll?
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Williams.
Aye.
Director Waramukundi.
Aye.
Director Najib.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Pence.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Pullman.
Aye, resolution passes. Next action item is resolution F0309 04 24. Authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2023-2024L of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll move approval.
Director Baker, thank you. And the second was from Director Pence. Thank you. This is the authorization for us to hold another auction sale of bonds in a month. Are there any questions or matters of discussion in the room about this resolution or the underlying substance? Anyone online with a question?
Nope.
All right, we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Pence. Would you please call the roll?
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Williams.
Aye.
Director Waramukundi.
Aye.
Director Najib.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Pence.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Pullman.
Aye. Motion resolution passes. Next is resolution F0310 04 24 for approval of other student fees, avocational fees, and adult tuition. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Director Burris and Director Case. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is Ava Keithler here? She is. Please come up and tell us about this.
Yes, okay. So in your packet, you received a fee summary. The fee summary shows actual student tuition and fees over the last 2 years. So if we're focusing on the column furthest from the right, shows the proposed fees for our upcoming FY25 budget. And so it's important to note that the fees highlighted in gray are determined by the WTCS board. So MATC has no discretion over these fees. And of the small handful of WTCS fees, the most impactful to our budget is our post-secondary and vocational adult tuition rate. And this we're expecting to increase by 2.26% in fiscal '25. And another thing I'd like to point out that in addition that the state board has permanently eliminated the $10 per credit online fee this time around, beginning in 2024-25. This fee has been suspended since 2021 due to the pandemic, so it's really not gonna be an abrupt change to our budget this year. And the unhighlighted fees are the ones that are established by MATC administration with consultation from our student services and student life staff and administration. Of the fees that MATC has discretion over, I'd like to call your attention to the proposed student activity fee for FY '25. That's like very close to the bottom student activity fee. If you're looking at the column on the right, it says 20.69% increase, very close to the bottom. And so as was presented last year, the student activity fee, you may recall, had not been raised since 2004. So to keep up with inflation and to continue to cover the operating expenses, employee salaries, student events and opportunities for students, an increase in the student activity fee ultimately from $8 in 2004 to $12.25 over 2 years was deemed necessary. This year in FY '24, current year, the fee was increased from $8 to $10.15, and next year for FY '25, the fee will be we're proposing a fee increase from $10.15 to $12.25. And this is that approximate 20.69% increase, but it's in accordance with the 2-year escalation plan, but I believe that we heard about last year. For the record, the District Student Government Association did vote last year to approve this increase. And it does, again, in addition to covering the operating expenses for the student life area, it allows student life to continue to provide expanded services such as the food pantries and fast care, free urgent care for the students. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions in the room? Director Baker.
How come we cut the avocational tuition so much?
Oh, okay, so you're looking at that negative 74.20.
Well, we went from $291 to $75.
I'm going to have to look into that. I'm not sure. I'm not aware.
And just for my colleagues,
Yep.
yeah, to have
Absolutely.
clarity, avocational classes are, for instance, I don't know, do we still do upholstery making, jewelry, things like
Yes,
that,
exactly.
correct?
Yes. I will get back to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions in the room? Director Olmeken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You spoke about the student activity fee and that it was voted on by the student government.
That's correct. Yes.
Was there like a severance, like it won't increase past this point, or that we will not have another increase without going back to the student government where they would have a conversation?
That's right. Any increase would go before the student government. Yes. So.
Okay, so there's not a third increase that's pending?
No, it was a 2-year planned escalation.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Directors online, any questions?
I had a quick question on the tuition pieces. Are those per credit
Yes.
costs? Yes? Okay. That's what I was assuming, but I wanted to make sure. And what a great bargain we are too. Like, really impressive.
Dr. Najib, any questions, comments?
Do we expect those increases to affect enrollment?
It's a pretty moderate decrease considering, it's 2.26%. Anyone's guess, I guess. I think it's pretty nominal increase. I certainly hope not.
Director Burris?
had a question about the return check line
Hmm.
and it being $40. Does that affect students at all?
Maybe Sue Jarvis would answer. Does the return check fee, does that affect students? I don't think so. No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions in the room? Any other questions online? We have a motion by Director Burris, a second by Director Case. Director Baker has stepped out of the room, but we'll be right back. So would you please call the roll?
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Moore Mukunde.
Aye.
Director Najimy.
Aye.
Director Owen Moore.
Aye.
Director Pence.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye. Resolution passes. Thank you. Next is resolution F0311-04-24 to revise fiscal year 2023-2024 renovation/remodeling capital projects. Could I have a motion and second? And then Chris Johnson, please come to the front.
So moved.
Thank you.
Director Case and Director Burris, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Johnson, welcome.
So this is a request to reappropriate funding for the capital project on the FY24 capital project list that included renovation of space in the main building downtown for a consolidated tutoring emporium. Post-pandemic, we've seen different way of delivering tutoring, including increased video conferencing and so forth. So we're requesting to delay this project while we further study what would be most appropriate to deliver tutoring on the downtown campus and reappropriate these funds to projects at the Oak Creek campus that have already partially been funded, but this would allow those to move forward during the time that we are further studying the tutoring scenario.
Thank you. Any questions from the directors online?
I see on the athletic locker rooms for 1.5 million renovation. Are these for just the players, the team, or this for everyone an MATC student can use?
So this is potentially a kind of a 4-phase effort if we choose to go forward. The first phase is to create public restrooms for those attending and participating in activities at the baseball, softball field, the soccer fields, and then also our protective services training that takes place in the outdoor environment at the Oak Creek campus. It also provides a safe haven due to inclement weather. So the second phase would be to add locker rooms. And then the third phase would be to create home men's and women's locker room clubhouses. And then if we choose to go forward with the fourth phase, we could do a fitness center to support athletics programs, protective services, and the campus population in general. So this is supplementing funds that were already allocated in FY23 to create a more adequate size project to get the site utilities built into the first project and those public restrooms underway.
So for all the student can use it, or just special teams?
That would be the long range plan, to have it available to students, faculty.
To students too. Okay.
Questions from anyone in the room?
That's one question. When you did you explain that the future project selection, that 400,000 is the money that you spend just assessing what you need to do in the future?
Okay, you're talking about the 3-year plan. That is a pool of money that we have to either do studies, like in the last few years, we've done a multi-year facilities plan. We also do studies for projects that aren't currently funded, to do feasibility studies for future projects. And then that also helps us get started on projects prior to their funding so that we can get a jump start on the process. We don't have to wait till that funding kicks in to get some of the design work done.
Thank you.
Other questions in the room? Any questions, Director Owen Moore? All right, we have a motion by Director Case and a second by Director Burris. Would you please call the roll?
Director Moore-Mukunde?
Aye.
Director Najib?
Aye.
Director Owen Moore?
Aye.
Director Pettis? Director Baker?
Aye.
Director Burris?
Aye.
Director Case?
Aye.
Director Medias-Ramos? Aye. Director Foley?
Aye, resolution passes. Thank you, sir. Next is a policy review. This is the first read. And it is a review of college advancement policies. The three of them listed there. I don't think I need to read those. And Vice President Laura Bray will tell us about these.
That sounds good. So, like Chair Foley said, this is a first read. So I'd be happy to answer any questions today, but then we'll have another opportunity next board meeting. These three are really an evolution of three policies that have been around for a long time. One was as far back as 1972, and it basically sets the framework for employee giving campaigns, receiving gifts to the college, and then also the foundation, which is established in 1979. So the first one is employee giving. That one, the updates that are included are minor, but since this was effective in 1991, the college has done some internal processes that for organizations that want to be a part of the employee giving campaign that we adopted. And it was something that was prior to my time that was really led through a committee that I know Janice Falkenberg at the time was a part of it. And basically the intent there was, I believe it was at the time that it was really UPath and United Way that were the two umbrella organizations that people could give to. And this opened it up to additional umbrella organizations, including and a process in order to consider that, and also a process to have other organizations that are affiliated with MATC. And so it provides that organizations have to have evidence of good standing and use of nonprofit practices that you would typically need to produce in order to get funds from a foundation or et cetera. And so what this does is just talks, what we're suggesting is that we have a new administrative procedure that just captures what we're already doing and the things that were in place from a SOP perspective, and just reference that here. So that is that. The ones that were added, just to give you a sense, there's an organization that's an umbrella organization around healthy and wellness called Creating Healthy Communities, Earthshare, Hunger Relief. And so in addition to the organizations like United Way and UPath, those are the other umbrella organizations that were added. So that's that one. The next one is policy 300-1. And the change, this is the private donations, gifts, grants, and bequests. And we're recommending that we just add and donations in kind. There is a procedure that says exactly what people need to do in order to have a gift given in kind, and what both the foundation and the area of the college that is considering a gift in kind. And so rather than, or it's basically just referencing that procedure exists. So that is that change. And I was one thing on that, the procedure basically is that if, like, I frequently get calls, we'd like to donate a car. I have a set of plates that if your culinary department would like a set of plates, we get those a lot. And so what we do is we ask the dean and the program, would you use a set of plates? And they're the ones that determine whether the program could use it. So oftentimes, like, we got a call about a donation of literally an aircraft, and could our aviation department use an aircraft? So we have a process that says it has to be signed off by the actual area versus like, I'm just accepting donations and figuring out what to do with them as the executive director. So that is that. And then lastly, for the foundation policy, there's a couple of changes that in part are made in concert with how other Wisconsin Technical College foundations that are associated with their colleges have updated their policies. So I'll just go through them real quick. One is, we just note that the foundation is a 501c3 by, designated by the IRS. The second one is there's some language in one of our procedures that says that that the district board authorized MATC to serve as the charitable conduit, and we just think it's important to have that as policy. And then also specifying what we're administering funds or raising funds for. And one of the additions there you'll see is support of Milwaukee PBS. We have, when this was first written, the foundation wasn't the fiscal agent for PBS, and now we are, and we thought that was important to include. Third, it mentions that the foundation has 2 board members directed by the district board. One is the president and one is a district board liaison. We have changed our bylaws to reflect that that's ex officio and non-voting, which was something that many of the colleges throughout the state did, to have some independence. And so that change is just recognized there. And then finally, just in June of 2016, the college and the foundation entered into an MOU to really have a solidification of our relationship. And this just is acknowledging that that exists and says that it will be reviewed. So those are the changes. They're mostly just kind of updating, like I said, in the evolution of the relationships and recognizing what we do right now. But I'd entertain any questions now if you'd like.
Any questions in the room? Director Baker?
So I have 2. The second policy. So this means I'm in the manufacturing program. Somebody wants to give me some high-tech machine tool and I can't accept it. I have to have the foundation accept it.
The foundation accepts that on behalf of the colleges and then gives it back to the college, essentially.
Does it, I mean, has a department been able to accept things before, or did they always have to do this?
No, they always had to do this, and it's written in the procedure of exactly, it's very detailed actually. And I did not check to see what date that procedure was adopted, but I've been here for more than 7 years and it was a good 10 years before that was adopted.
Okay, and then the second thing is, so technically the MATC Foundation is separate from MATC, separate 501c3.
Correct.
It is not under us at all. We have no authority over it. We just have an MOU with it.
So there is, and you probably know this more on the accounting side, but there is a piece that we roll up into, there is acknowledgement in the financials that the foundation exists. So I am not prepared to talk about that from a FASB, GASB ruling.
Yeah, okay, I'd appreciate, you don't have to do this now, but
Yep.
I would appreciate more information on
Absolutely.
understanding financially, legally, whatever, if we, what exactly is our tie, because it sounds like, and maybe this doesn't move, maybe it's always been this way, it's just this language sort of brings it top of mind. It's my impression it's our foundation. it belongs to us.
Yep.
We dictate its priorities, whatever. This makes it sound like it could dictate its own priorities.
So there is legally some separation clauses that need to occur in terms of governance.
Okay.
And so the piece and so in the MOU, it talks through how we determine those priorities and that in terms of the administration, aligning it to strategic goals and all that. But there is some need to have organizational separation. So I can come back for the final review with a little bit more description of that.
Or perhaps before the final review in case.
Oh,
there's
absolutely. That sounds
something
good.
that we might want to tweak. Okay, in the language. Thanks. Appreciate it.
But some of that is, we may need to look at legally, like from different separate organizations on what is tweakable. Because some of it is like IRS and other.
That's actually my questions.
Yeah.
Are they-
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Other questions in the room?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my line of questioning is along the same lines as Director Baker's. Is first and foremost, when you establish an MOU, you're talking about two independent entities that have to come to an agreement. That's my understanding of the MOU. That it's not exactly a contract, but it's kind of like two entities coming together to do some things. And so I'm wondering, and maybe this is a part of the work that you need to do, are there any, especially to the third point, or the third point, are there any future relationships that you're concerned about, or future distinctions between entities that you think need to be made between the foundation board and us and this board, or the foundation board and other entities who may or may not be acting in a similar way? And they may be a part of some of the work that you have to do in the future. Does that make sense or no?
I think that's legal. I think it's back to legal question.
Okay, like I said, it's
Yeah.
much along the lines. of
Yeah.
what you made me say.
And I can put just.
There are like, and I'll speak just like HD has a foundation and there are very distinct legal things to make sure that the corporation is not inappropriately using the tax benefits, things like that, right? Like even, I'll give the example when HD had sponsored at Summerfest, right? And that enabled marketing and things like that. There's very distinct lines in what is allowed to use foundation money versus I should spend my marketing budget on it. So like a lot of that separation is legally defined, and I'm assuming there's similarities. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but that we don't have much control over.
Can I just address that really quick? So all of the Wisconsin Technical College system, I have peers throughout the system. And it is very typical to have an MOU between the college and the foundation that is the charitable arm of the college. And like, I even contacted Cuyahoga Community College when looking right now at how are we structuring our MOU to see, is there anything they're doing we haven't put in? So it's, this relationship is typical, and I can just bring back more information, but prior to your next meeting to see if there's additional questions.
A follow-up question.
Yeah, just a follow, and I appreciate you throwing Cleveland in there. That was very nice.
Yeah.
It's
That was
Cuyahoga,
part
but
of my
that's
plan.
okay.
No,
You're
it
not-
wasn't actually.
I will be very honest with you, and I'm looking around the room, and I know Dr. Martin and I were around then, but there was a time when our foundation board was actually used to oppose this board. And that's what I'm protecting against. Because it was seen as such an independent entity that it was using its authority to oppose the actions of this board. And I just don't want to be in that position again.
Does the MOU address that?
See,
Does the MOU address any of
Yes,
that?
there's things like,
That may be where the.
in the
We
MOU,
can
it
copy
says
that.
something, there's a statement that says that the board and the organization won't disparage the college. And there's
Okay.
like actual
Could
language.
you share that with the board?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We're going through a process of updating that MOU right now, and so maybe one one possible way to do it is working through the board liaison and
Yeah, that's fine.
updating so that you can see what some of the thoughts are and updating it. If that is the right way to go.
Yes. Yeah, that works.
Director Burris.
Whole committee or something together, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Thank you, Chair. I thank my board colleagues for obviously asking questions because I'm looking at this document and one of the first things that I see is the board has authorized. So that made me believe that in a way we had some type of authority over the foundations. I appreciate you guys' questions and obviously providing me clarity. As far as the MOU goes, I would love to hear more information about that as well. Especially with the concerns of Director Baker, and some of your statements as well. I would like to hear more as well. But I, again, appreciate you guys' questions because that provided clarity for me because my thought process to that, what I read was much different.
Any questions from the directors online? No. When was the MOU created?
2016.
When was it last reviewed?
This is the first review since
This is
that
the
time.
first review.
Yeah,
Okay, we got-
and since that time, we've grown. The amount of scholarships we're giving out is 320% higher than it was at that time. So this is a good time to review.
So that's like.
And the hope is that the timeline for that, and at that time, the MOU was done between administration and the foundation, not brought to the district board. This is the policy. Now, if there's a change.
Yep, that document.
Okay, thank you. Next is policy approval for the financial aid policy. Joshua Montalban, please. Welcome.
Thank you. So I was here last month. I just went over initially the return of Title IV calculation and the requirements the Department of Education has for the language that we have in our policy for how we calculate a student's federal aid eligibility when they withdraw from school. That's the gist. Any questions for me about the policy?
Any questions from the directors online? Director Morrow, Kunde?
I don't mean to be this way, but that was kind of quick. Can you
Oh, sure.
reiterate that?
So when a student withdraws from school, if they have not attended at least 60% of the semester, they haven't earned all of their financial aid that they were initially awarded, or federal student aid, that is. So when a student withdraws, we then do a calculation in the financial aid office to prorate that eligibility for federal student aid. And then we return any amount the student hasn't yet earned back to the Department of Education. The policy is describing what that process is for MATC.
Okay, thanks.
And it's currently up for review as we're going through recertification with the Department of Education. And one of the policies they require that we have is this return of Title IV policy.
Thank you.
Director Burks.
Just a point of clarification, you're saying that before the student get those dollars, you will return them.
Well, so the student would receive the money potentially, but if they have withdrawn from school, they've withdrawn from all classes, we're then required as an institution to determine how much of that they've earned. So a student might have already had the amounts dispersed to their account, and we actually have to return some of that money back to the government.
What happens?
But what if it's gone?
Well, if the money's already been sent to the student, they may be left with a balance too. And
But
actually,
then
that's
pay
not
it?
completely uncommon. Hold on.
My apologies.
Thank you. Director Burris, did you?
Is there a workaround for that? Like, could you do it before it was dispersed to students' accounts?
No, because we don't know when they're going to attend and when they're going to withdraw or not. If we knew up front when they were going to withdraw from school, we could do something like that, but we
Oh,
don't.
so you mean, I thought it was up until the point of the financial aid disbursement, but you're saying like even after the financial aid disbursement?
Once the student withdraws from school. So if they stop attending all their classes altogether, at that point, that's when we perform this calculation.
Okay.
Director Mendia-Ramos.
I was just gonna say then if that's the case and they're left with a student balance and if they don't pay it, then the school is ultimately responsible to pay that balance.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
And historically, how big or how small that account has been for this? How big of a problem it has been financially for the college?
So that I could not speak to that. I do not know. In terms of like how much money we've actually returned and then not been able to collect from a student,
Correct.
I do not know those numbers.
Thank you.
Is that a number you can come up with?
I can work with our student accounts office to
You
see if
haven't been
we,
here that long, so you could work with.
yeah, I can work with our student accounts office. They probably have a little bit more data behind like balances. They have way more data on the balances part that students have. So we could identify for them who we've done the calculation on, and they could tell us what kind of balances those students have.
We have been, forgiving some bad debt. Is any of that bad debt that we've been forgiving bad debt that was created through this mechanism? That is, they got the money and they didn't use it appropriately.
I don't know definitively, but I would say that most likely there's some of that in there.
It's any debt of the student.
I think they have some answers in the back.
I mean, to the extent that a student has a balance, yes.
Any questions, any other questions in the room about approval of the financial aid policy? How about the directors online? No?
I'll just say that saw the policy changes more of a, this is something that we had to do compliance wise, but I had some of the same questions that came up today. So I'll look forward to seeing if we can get a little more information around that.
All right.
Yeah, I want
Yep.
to talk about this one without motion.
Well, we're gonna have to do something about that, aren't we?
Oh, sorry.
Is there a motion to approve?
I better make one. Yes, I would move policy approval.
Thank you, Director Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Case, thank you. We do not need a roll call for this one. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Policy is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next are monthly reports. Bear with me while I catch up here. Second. First of all, congratulations to Dr. Martin for being honored as one of the 2024 Professional Dimensions Imprint Award winners at the April 18th celebration at the Pfister Hotel. Dr. Martin was selected based on her individual career achievements, leadership, community impact, and influence. Professional Dimensions Imprint Award, formerly known as the Sacagajiwa Award, was originally established in 1982 to honor career women for their accomplishments as business leaders and trailblazers within the Milwaukee region. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next is the apprentice graduation celebration. Will be held on Wednesday, May 22nd at the Bucyrus Club, 1919 12th Avenue, South Milwaukee. Cash bar reception and food stations open at 5:30, and the Bucyrus Erie Museum will be open from 5:30 to 7 p.m. The program begins at 7 p.m. Please contact Beth or Peter if you are interested in attending. I'm going to add, by way of digression, that I used to be in charge of the materials that are now in the Bucyrus Museum, including all of the glass negatives from the photographs of the Panama Canal being built with Bucyrus equipment. So I am going to try to be there because it has a warm spot in my heart. I hope to see some of you too. Presidential search update. Reminder on upcoming events. Round 2 of interviews continue tomorrow afternoon, April 24, with Dr. Anthony Cruz, followed by Dr. Mark Curtis Chavez on Thursday, April 25, and Dr. Monica Brown on Monday, April 29. We presently have on our schedule that the board will convene on May 1 to review campus feedback and make a presidential selection. We are having some scheduling difficulties with that. In our closed session, we'll talk about a different date and or time. But I just wanted to alert people that that date is probably going to change. Let's see, the new president is scheduled to start on July 1st. New business, I'll wait for the new business section to talk about that. That's the end of my report today, Director Baker.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing, as just whoever's listening and whoever's in our audience, that the board is really seeking the engagement and input from the internal and external MATC communities. And so on the website, there are places where you can see if you are faculty or staff, there's a session, students, there's a session. There's a community and business specific session that people have to sign into. Tell your advisory board members, tell people in the community who are engaged with MATC. And there is a 3:00 session for each one of the candidates in Cooley Auditorium that's open to just anyone in the general public. So it's my appeal to get lots of eyes on these candidates to help us in our decision-making process.
Thank you. Next is the president's report.
Okay, well, good evening, board members, faculty, staff, students, and community. On March 28th, restaurant owner Paul Bartolotta and Top Chef contestant Dan Jacobs visited MATC with our seniors graduating class. They were really, I think, thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to listen to these two great chefs. I have to say also that both Paul Bartolotta and Dan Jacobs did give their cards to each student. So I think they were recruiting as well, but they really did get to hear about their stories of inspiration and just what they needed to do to be successful in the culinary world. And then they went on to another public meeting, which had about 200 folks, students, faculty, staff, and visitors. Dan Jacobs, who is the co-owner, and many of you maybe have gone to Dan or Esther Ebbs. He was one of the 15 contestants on the new season of Top Chef. I think it's really great, and I see that Dan just won one of the challenges. The one I saw the other night. He's also a finalist for the James Beard Award here, and Chef Bartolotta, as you know, is an MATC alum and award-winning chef. He served as a guest judge on the Top Chef season premiere on March 20th. I had asked Paul if when he was a graduation speaker years ago, I said, would you ever consider being one of the contestants on Top Chef? He said, never. He said, it's the real deal. It's really difficult. It's really hard, but I will happily be a judge. And so that's what he did. From April 5th to the 8th, I attended the American Association of Community College conferences along with Steve Harrow, the Associate Dean and Project Manager for our MATC Drive program, and Dr. Reggie Parks, the Retention Coach for the same program. We gave a presentation that highlighted the achievements of our transportation programs, really to provide insights to how to replicate this program across the country because it is so successful and so popular. Unfortunately for our session, it was the same time as the women's final college basketball championship game. And we found that out because we left and went, where is everyone? And they were all, of course, watching TV in the bar. So it was still a great conference and we learned a lot. MATC was also recently honored by Cognia for 100 years of excellence as an adult high school. Cognia is a nonprofit organization that provides quality assurance for schools, school districts, and education service providers. Many of you may not know that we have the only adult high school in the whole 16 Wisconsin Technical College system. We're really proud of that. On April 22nd, MATC welcomed nearly 200 high school seniors in our Cooley Auditorium as they signed their letters of intent to attend MATC. The event was kicked off by a MATC drum line from the Music Occupations program, and representatives from all of our colleges, academic and career pathways were in hand to promote their programs. And then finally, Earth Day cleanup event at Walker Square was a huge success. Yesterday, our campuses participated in Earth Day activities, but my cabinet and I attended the Earth Day cleanup at Walker Square and the surrounding community, where we were joined by special guests, the Mayor Johnson, Alderman Jose Perez, and the Milwaukee Police Department Chief Jeffrey Norman. This really came as an idea from one of the students, one of the listening sessions I had out there, one of the students, and I think he was from a South American country, but and he came here for a better life, of course, with his wife. And this was his suggestion. Ivan was his name, and he said, wouldn't it be great Now, this is someone who's trying to learn English, get a job, and he's thinking about cleaning up the neighborhood, which I thought was really great. And so thanks to Annette Velez and her role in coordinating this, because of course I turned to her and I knew she has all these connections and said that we really needed to do this before I left. I wanted to make sure that we listened to the student and followed up on his suggestion. So the whole team of Walker Square pulled this thing together, as well as staff from downtown and others. And they cleaned up a 2-block radius around Walker Square. And I can't tell you how thrilled they were. They also did some plantings of some flowers and bushes. And something that I really appreciated, that a tree was also planted in my honor. And if it dies, I will replace it. That concludes my report. Well, if I planted it for sure, but not. So.
Thank you. Vice President Bray for the legislative matters report.
Because it's very quick. Ramey is unable to be here today, but a couple of brief updates. You have a report at your desk, but a couple of brief things. One of the things that she is paying close attention to is that nomination papers for candidates for the Assembly and for the Senate are due in June. And as previously reported, there are many retirements, and so there'll be open seats and paired incumbents under the new legislative districts. And so that will impact the next legislative session, and we'll continue to keep you informed. A legislative study committee on the future of the University of Wisconsin system is under consideration for the 2024 legislative interim. If formed, membership would consist of both legislators and members of the public. And she just wanted to ensure that you were aware of that for 2 reasons. Higher education continues to be in the spotlight on its affordability, its role, function, and then policies that might come up out of that committee, if created, could certainly impact our system. So more to come on that. The other piece, there was several other updates that she's given in the past. One of the things we're also monitoring is the status of the funding to support oral health programs, and joint finance action is currently pending, and we should have an update for you next time. There are no updates on the Arizona College of Nursing at this time, but we continue to monitor it. And then we did have a legislative task force meeting. One of the things we did, and we talked about all these items, and knowing that there's potential things with new candidates that will impact the next legislative session, and having a new president, that we talked about what would be the right way to do legislative updates, legislative breakfasts. And so we had some ideas coming out of that we'll be updating you in the months to come. So that is my report. Did I miss anything?
Any questions in the room?
No, just to add one piece to that, when we were at the legislative task force, we did discuss the new, when she's talking about like how seats are going to be changing because of redistricting, it will impact our district. I mean, we will have some new legislators most likely that we will be working with. And so it's important for us to keep an eye on that, and it will impact our relationship with our legislators.
Any questions from directors online? Thank you very much. Next is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report. Michael Rogers, please come on up. Interim Vice President, DEI.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
So I'll be providing an update on our DEI initiatives. So I've now been here at MATC for about 3 months. And throughout the course of the 3 months, I have purposely initiated a lot of meetings with faculty, staff, and students to learn about MATC and to assess our culture. So the purpose of these meetings is really to serve as a listening tour, to really understand the culture, the dynamics here, to inform some of the things that I've been tasked to do at MATC. So my purpose for today is just to share some of those initiatives that I've been working on for the past few months as I continue to learn about MATC. Next slide, please. So I just briefly wanted to mention the Transformation 2025, simply because this is the lens through which I have been doing the work and making sure that everything is aligned with student success and equity and some of the other things that are mentioned there. Next slide. You should have received an overview of some of the programming initiatives that have happened. Some that were prior to my arrival and the ones that have taken place. These programmatic initiatives do a great job of keeping the conversation going around DEI topics and engaging our campus. I do think we have an opportunity to dig deeper and to align our programming more with strategic initiatives and specifically more focused on serving students to assist in completion and persistence rates. In addition to that, I was able to lead a training with the MATC Management Essentials Group on culturally relevant supervision, which was a great opportunity to work with, I don't remember the amount of people that were in the room, but a captive audience that are actively working with a lot of our employees on campus to have that cultural framework when working with our employees. Next slide. So one of the things that I learned early on within the first few weeks is that we did not have, within the division of DEI, we did not have a lot of standard operating procedures in place. So this is something that I was planning to facilitate on my own. I didn't know that we had a department that would assist with that process. So we have been going through that for the past couple of months. And the reason why we're doing this is to promote greater consistency with the work that we're doing with students. And this also makes sure that we're being efficient. So we're having a lot of conversations about how are we serving students, the meetings with students, what do those look like, the outreach with students to really assess what we're doing. But this also helps with the onboarding process for new staff members. One of the things that I learned early on is that due to turnover and retirements, we lost some valuable institutional knowledge within some of these departments. And so developing these standard operating procedures is going to help keep things running smoothly so that we continue to serve our students to the best of our abilities. Next slide. Strengthening student services. So upcoming on April 30th, we will have an all-day planning event for the departments that are specifically within the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The purpose with this event next week is to really recenter our work, to focus in on what we're doing. We have a staff member coming from institutional research that will talk more about data, how to use data to influence our programs so we make sure that we're hitting the mark and not just hosting programs for the sake of doing it. And so will be taking place on April 30th. And really the goal with that is to have conversations with the staff about establishing more high impact practices. One of the things that I've learned in my 3 months is that we have a lot of transactional interactions with students, which is serving a need. But my goal is to move the needle forward to have more transformational conversations with students that can address some of the things that may be hindering their success here at MATC. And so the overall goal with that is to close equity gaps, right? If we can assess why students are not completing their programs, if we can put more measures in place to learn some of the barriers that students have, we will adapt our programming in that way. Next slide. So this here is just a screenshot of the student diversity dashboard. This predates my arrival at MATC. But this is something that we will be working on understanding this better on April 30th. I don't remember the date when it was started. I'm not aware of how many people on campus know that it exists. I know there were some things to educate the campus about it, but I'm hoping that we can spread this information again so that people will utilize this dashboard to understand our students. I believe that the data tells the story about how we should adapt our student services. Next slide. Employee affinity groups. We currently have 5 active groups. And as you can imagine, employee affinity groups it's a good opportunity to learn about the needs of our employees. It's a place to build community and also a place of advocacy as well. And so the 5 active groups, we have leaders that lead these affinity groups. This is a volunteer role, and they play a critical role in supporting our employee experience here at MATC. We do have some expressed interest since I've been here of new groups starting in the future. And we do have a affinity group leadership meeting April 25th to discuss transition. We have some leaders that will be stepping away from the leadership role and trying to acclimate others to step into that role. And then lastly, just an update that we renewed our partnership with the Mexican consulate. This is a great opportunity to advance educational opportunities for those within the Mexican and Latino community. Millie Rodriguez will be the staff member who will be on site there for 3 hours every Friday, meeting with guests that are coming to the consulate and offering educational resources about MATC. Any questions?
Questions in the room? Director?
Can you go into a little bit of detail about what culturally relevant supervision is?
Yeah, so one of the things that I talked about with this group is that typically let me take a step back. When people typically step into a supervision role, typically people are not taught how to be a good supervisor. A lot of times that's influenced by our own biases, things that we may have learned growing up, assumptions that we may have about other groups that then influences our supervisory relationship. So we spent a few hours kind of deconstructing our own personal ideology and biases about how we interact with people. We also discussed group dynamics as well, like understanding as a supervisor, being in tune with the dynamics of a group, who's speaking, who's not speaking, understanding why people may be more, some are more comfortable with conflict and others are not. A lot of times those things are tied to cultural norms that people typically don't think about in the supervisory capacity.
Okay. Just as a follow-up, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if you can give us, you probably have done, probably asked you this before, if you can give us your general like synopsis about DEI, you know, the attacks it receives, statewide, nationwide, et cetera. And some on one side, on another side, people just think it's just, I'm not gonna do enough.
Right.
Can you give us a little bit of your philosophy?
Yeah. So the reason why I'm doing that event with the diversity dashboard that I showed is because I believe a lot of these initiatives are under attack because sometimes we don't have the data to prove why it's effective. And so, you know, my synopsis is that we have to utilize the data to understand the challenges that our students are facing, and we tie that to student success outcomes. And so everyone would agree they want students to succeed. But when you only situate it in the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, when people don't understand that, then they typically will say, why are we doing this? Because they feel like it's creating division, but they don't understand that these things are intricately tied to student success outcomes. And so that's always been my approach, is understanding what barriers students may be having. So I have been paying close attention to specifically Texas and Florida, because those are like the most extreme examples of like entire departments being cut and things of that nature. And I also had the opportunity to visit Madison College, which not too far from here, and to meet with their staff to learn about how they have structured the work. So I think at the end of the day, we're doing a lot of that. Is just how we communicate it, and making sure, again, that it's tied back to data so that people know what we're doing is effective.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Director Pence.
Can you explain a little bit further the Mexican consulate partnership? Is this a Chicago? Is that where the consulate is? Is it local?
We have an office here.
Yeah.
Okay, there's an office here, and how is that an advantage to the school? How does that help us?
Great question. So it's located on the east side, I believe on Prospect. If you didn't know it was there, you probably gone past it and just didn't notice it was there. But because that's what happened with me. So the reason why it's advantageous for MATC, because they have a lot of guests that are coming to the consulate that are seeking out opportunities for GEDs, educational opportunities to advance their careers and their lives in general. So having an MATC staff member there for 3 hours a week gives us the opportunity to potentially recruit people that are looking to pursue opportunities that we offer. like GED and like the community education program. Other things, academic things that they may be seeking out to advance their lives.
Any other questions in the room? Any questions from the directors online?
I was just wondering, like looking at the dashboard, I didn't see any like reflection of data from like staff surveys of inclusion, belonging, any of those things. And I wonder if we're measuring some of those things and that's part of our, like, either could be part of our dashboard or that we're paying attention to that kind of data in this work. It's really important work. And I really enjoyed hearing about the culturally relevant supervision too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and in regards to the staff, that is something that we pay attention to, I think primarily through the pay survey. That's how we receive that information about our employee experience. And so I think some of that is tied in with that dashboard as well.
Any other questions?
Could you introduce yourself again to us? I missed the introduction.
Sure. So I am born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Spent most of my career in Illinois. I typically tell people I ended up in this work growing up here in Milwaukee, very segregated. Didn't have the language or understanding of some of my frustrations as a child growing up here. I moved back here in 2020. A lot of people thought I was crazy for coming back to Milwaukee, but I felt that vocational call to come back here. Very passionate about this work. It's something that I do outside of my 9 to 5, and most recently was at UW Milwaukee and oversaw 4 of their advocacy centers that reported directly to me. I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if you have any other specific questions, but.
Thank you very much. Now, you chair a department, or who is in the
You mean
department?
like my title here?
Here too, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Interim Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
But it was nice to learn about.
Yeah.
Great, great. No, both, thank you. Thank you very much.
I didn't realize it was a simple question.
Yeah. No, I wanted both. Thank you.
I do have one question for you. You've said a couple of times here that the data are important to you. Is there data that you would like to have that our systems are not producing now?
Good question. Great question.
Oh, that is a good question. I honestly, I would say, I think we have an abundance of data that.
Yeah, but is it the right data?
I think it is the right data. I think we need to have more conversations about the data and how to use that to like improve what we do here. So there's a lot of things that I've read through, and even with the dashboard, I'm still learning how to use it and understand it better. And that's why we have someone coming to our staff to kind of teach us how to use it better. But that's just my assessment. I think we have a lot of data. We just need to understand it better and have more conversations about it so that it can influence the work that we do.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is the enrollment report. Executive Vice President Bill King, please.
Good evening, Chef Foley, members of the board. So I have with me, as she anticipates her next step, Dr. Yen Wong, pronouncing her name correctly. If you saw it, it wouldn't be pronounced that way, but next month you'll see her up there presenting this report. And I'll give this to you as a brief. You asked me 2 additional questions, but I also brought her up here because she can respond to those as well. Okay. So what's in front of you, either on the screen or in your hands, if you turn to the next slide, is your overall enrollment. On slide 2, and again, we're paying attention most likely to overall summer, spring, and year-to-date rows and columns all the way over to achieved. We're at 3826 total FTE for spring, 8508 for the year. And so we're slightly above what our goal was, which is a very good thing. People work very hard at that all year long in a variety of ways, both from a perspective of how we outreach to populations, but also within the programs, as you can see on the final slide. This is very similar to what was presented again last month. On to the next slide. And then you're going to see a enrollment, and then it's just a split as we compare against previous years, right? And so we like doing that. We go back to 2020. I think, as I've mentioned before, to some of you, you hear a lot of things here. So I'm not sure if you remember that. A lot of colleges have been doing this, and a lot of colleges are saying we need to stop comparing to 2020 because no college really can compare to 2020. But it's up here, and you see the difference. And then where we are today, we did gain, at least from last year, 190 FTE over again last year, and change year to year is 5.23. That's as up 415. Again, as a reminder, as enrollments come in, your FTE and headcount increase, and then sometimes dip through the middle of the semester as students drop out. You heard a little bit earlier today about students dropping out for just at the 60% rate. So students stop attending. There's some fluctuation in enrollment. Go to the next slide. This is our overall headcount. And to some extent, FTE is important to us, certainly is our funding formula. Our headcount, though, really does tell a tremendous story about the college and how the college operates. As you've heard before, when we've had your CEAP reports, we've had a fairly large, substantial increase in CE in particular, ESL over the last year or two. And you're going to see that reflected in your numbers. So on the third row, spring 2024, all the way over to the 415, you see 18,541. And this is where you are seeing trickling and enrollments that do come in through the semester, because we do take them in. And in a variety of cases, you've heard Dr. Isahaku comment a couple of times about enrollments that come in, registration through the term, especially in the CE program, but they also occur in other programs as well. Overall difference between spring and this spring and last, again, you're seeing a slight decline, but again, our headcount is slightly up. So, excuse me, in the reverse, headcount slightly up over the last, since that last period, but from last spring prior, right? So that final or second to last row, difference between spring 2023, 2024. Slight headcount down, but our FTE is up. Okay. On to the next slide. And as you've asked before, this is just making sure we see our demographic count, and does not change much from month to month, but on average 57% female, 40%, 41% male. As we look at our largest categories of students participating, 26% African-American, about 25% Hispanic, and then white as 33%. The Hispanic category comment comes up a lot. And so if we move to the next slide, you do see 25% here. And again, there's kind of three levels. That's the first 25% is everybody. So it's everybody attending, all counts coming in. This, again, slide, as you asked more detail, is the head count then in particular, as we look at students coming in non-CE. And then you do see a small difference from, again, year prior. You do see term years fall 2023. We call that out because it's the point in time of which we draw the data. There's your head count in the center at 2593, and then your percentage. And I said, could they come in threes? So 25% was on the previous slide. This one says 19.7. There is an additional percentage that we haven't conveyed to you yet, and it's just more a matter of how our HSI partner is asking us or allows us to further split this. So this, if memory serves, Dr. Wong, is really a representation of all students, including part-time.
This particular one is among undergraduate. That means does not include CE.
Doesn't CE, but that includes part-time.
Correct.
And then if we're going to the new calculation, which is closer to 21%, correct, and we pull out the part-time student.
Correct.
So we're moving in that direction. Doesn't necessarily mean we kind of got closer, but we didn't really get closer, right? It's just a way that we can measure. And I bring that to you because when you get a report next month, we're going to comment about that. We're going to comment about the percentage, our interaction with our federal agency, the timing, when we have to report, when we draw the data, just give you a better sense of the movement toward that goal of becoming an HSI. And there's a lot of particulars when we draw the data down in October from iPads in the previous year. We can submit in December and January. And then that usually is, again, if it's in fall, it's from a full year back. So we are really going far back because it's based on iPads data. So we're kind of stuck with that. We're going to give you that as what the percentage is, what the timing is, and then the strategies will come up in the report for next month. We weren't able to bring that to you today. But I did want to give you some of the particulars, and you do see different numbers on HSI status as we presented them, so I hope that wasn't confusing.
Questions in the room? Any questions from the directors online? Director Baker.
Okay, yes, it was confusing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Go
But
ahead.
you kind of rattled through a bunch of things really fast. So I think what you just said is, okay, so the difference between, the big number includes our students who are in non-credit.
Everybody.
You say undergraduate, but it's essentially including our students who are in our general education courses or community education courses, and we don't get aidable cost for them. It's not credit. Okay. So then the smaller number though, right now includes full-time and part-time students who are in the credit, for credit programs. And next month, you're going to bring us just full-time, but they will also be compared to just full-time in the rest of the population. So it'll be a larger number,
It will be, and
a larger percentage.
Correct.
But it will, because we'll just be comparing apples and apples, will be full-time students. Okay, did I do that okay?
You did.
Okay, I think I got it.
And the more important thing there is that that is the clearest designation that the feds want us to use as we're declaring our status. And so they want us to look at that. I think that for us, as we then work with Dr. Nahara, who couldn't be here this evening, I think it potentially narrows down then if we think about how we can impact full-time. We want to impact everybody, but if we can impact full-time, there's the greater capacity for us to generate that higher percentage number, which we do want to move into that status, right? That status gives us the ability to navigate with federal grants and other opportunities as an institution. It's been a goal for all of you prior to me coming. So, but we'll give you a little more detail about that. And I will try and write that down clearly next time so that I don't just rattle it off and you can get the sequence, okay?
Something else that I think would be helpful is, since this goal was set some time ago, I think there are people on the board who don't really know what it means.
Okay.
And so a little explanation about that. Why is it important for us to become an HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution? There are some financial benefits. What are those? Do those financial benefits flow only to that community? Do they flow to the college as a whole?
Okay.
How does all that work? Why is that important to us?
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So then the question that I have is like, why are we waiting until this month to get that number? Why haven't we,
Which number? I'm sorry.
the number that you're gonna say we're not, that it's gonna be higher, that we're gonna compare apples to apples? Why have not we been doing that on a regular basis?
I think, well, two things I'd say. I think we got a clarification that that was an opportunity for us. I don't know if we had known that prior. When I walked in the door, I think you sat me down in a meeting and told me, hey, Phil, this is what's happening. And I was new. And so I said, oh, that's interesting.
So
And
you got that clarification from
from the feds.
iPads?
From the
working-
federal, yeah.
Federal
from Department of
government.
Education, the
Yeah.
federal. Yeah, we have been using the 19.7% was is a HAKU definition. So Hispanic Serving Association University. So that the definition using everybody who are taking credit course, like the second definition you just
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah.
And then we found out actually the Department of Education in the federal Department of Education is using full-time students only, credit-bearing students only, to calculate that for the HSI eligibility purpose. So that's the change of definition and calculation. So that's why since we learned that, we kind of calculated using that definition, and that gave us actually higher percentage.
When did you learn that?
When? Did you say like October? November?
Yeah.
And then we have to continue to ask them to confirm. Actually, it's funny, they didn't know very well either. Like also on their website, their listed definition actually is not how they calculated. That took us a long time to figure out because they give me a definition. Okay, I look at our numbers. Oh, that's not, I cannot get the number they listed on their website. So I asked them again, and they said, oh, we actually did not, because on their website, they say they use FTE to calculate. And I said, there's no way because we don't even submit data to APAS, the FTE numbers. We don't submit that. We only have submit headcount. And then eventually their data analyst told me, oh, actually we're using just undergraduate full-time students to calculate that. But the website still says FTE. So then we found another organization using that definition, try to replicate the DOE definition calculation, and they couldn't. So there's so many numbers out there.
Well, I'm just asking because I did reach out to the Department of Education myself because since I didn't get any clarity from the last board meeting as I requested, I did reach out to them and they were very clear sharing the information with me.
So
And-
what did they share? Did they say FTE or full-time undergraduate?
They say FTE.
See, that's the wrong one, actually. They
Okay.
say it on the website, but they
But
actually
they
not.
also
actually-
share a whole hour webinar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw it, where it explains you how to calculate it, but since, it just concerns me because I was able to figure this out in an hour by reaching out to them. And since we know this information since October, here we are as a board thinking that, hey, we have not moved the needle all this time. I mean, last board meeting, I requested information on what we're doing to move the needle, and as it turns out, it is a little bit higher. So it's more reassuring for everybody, and I think it's important for us to know, so.
One clarifying point, though, I'll note, if we go back in time and Dr. Wong recalculates for the last 3 years, it's gonna be 21, all it does is shift the number up by 2%. It doesn't necessarily say we've improved. So it's calculation.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense, right? So
It does.
it's closer,
But-
but we've been inching. And so, but to your question, I hear you. Thank you for that response and thank you for the question. We do intend on coming back next month, and really, one of the goals I'd asked for Dr. Nahara to sit down was truly identify an acceleration strategy to get us there in a period of time and suggest what that timeline might be. So,
And what is the percentage number we're trying to achieve?
25.
25% of full-time students.
Full-time
Credit.
undergraduate credit bearing.
Director Moore, Cindy.
I'm curious whose numbers, procedure we're supposed to be utilizing, because if the director can go and get that information, and then you're saying, yeah, but they're lying.
No, I'm not saying they're not.
I'm not saying that you're saying lying, but what I hear is that they don't know which set that they're using. They don't know their own procedures they're like juggling. And so if you're juggling a chainsaw, an apple, and a bottle of water, you don't want to, and you're gonna juggle and grab the apple and bite it, you want to grab the chainsaw. So which one are we supposed to be using? And how do we know when we're there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't ever want to tell you.
Yeah, so, I mean, because it's like, you have all of these different
Yeah, definitions.
set points, and so
regulations.
which one are you gonna use to try to get to the 25%?
Man.
I'll send you the YouTube 1 hour webinar.
The one thing I'll add then too is, as a layer of, and hopefully this works, we identify, you work with a federal program officer. I can't remember some of you, Director Pickering, you've done some of that in your past, I don't remember. Working with a federal program officer, I can't remember. And they vary. And so the conversations, you get different feedback, not faulting, they start. Here's what we also got though. They have a 3-member team that we're putting you in connection with, that is their data analysts. So that's the assurance that we will then sit down, identify our stepwise progression of what is exactly our calculation with assurance as we move toward our goal. So that's the feedback I got, but it took probably about 6 phone calls to get that information, for them to be on the phone, 5 canceled phone calls for them to sit on the phone, work with us. We have names, we made the contact, and I think for us, it's a maintenance of effort to then assure, one, we have the data point that's correct, keep moving toward it and report appropriately. I don't believe, as we've heard different numbers, that they will change the number on us. I think we have a clearer definition of that, and then the assurance. I think we're going to connect our research arm with their research arm. That's what they're asking. Those are the 3 individuals. These are the researchers in the team. Those are the names we have, and we're supposed to coordinate directly with them. So.
More, Cindy.
Thank you. We are so close to becoming an HSI. We are so close, and it has become a goal of mine. I think I can speak for a lot of folks on this board that we want to become an HSI. It'd be a great feather in the cap of the college if we could do that. I just want to be able to know how close we are to that, and if we're moving in the right directions, if we're doing the right things, if there are places where we can do something else. We so close. We can almost taste it. God,
I like your analogies tonight.
Thank you.
Feather in the cap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hopefully it's not the chainsaw that you're tasting, yes. Yeah. Any further questions from the directors online?
I just wanted to note that I think this also ties into resource allocation as we make really important decisions around resource allocation and how we're getting to those goals. It's important to know how those numbers are calculated. So I'm glad we've got more understanding of it, and I look forward to hearing what those plans look like to help us get there.
Thank you both.
And Chair Foley, you had two additional questions.
Oh.
Would you like me to address them?
Sure.
Okay, so they were the ones you answered. I see on the graduation rate within 150% of the program length, you had asked us a question. To the extent, is it possible for us to generate a more current number, we say the percentage of a cohort that has started and is on track for graduation? It's actually a fantastic question. And I think what I wrote is a lot of colleges do this and they struggle. Momentum points. So what you can identify for students moving through is track them in terms of the percent toward the degree. And then there's a proactive strategy and outreach toward the student of, hey, you're moving toward your goal rather than a passive one. I will note, it's a caveat, I'm giving you too many tonight, but working closely with our EAB, Education Advisory Board person, we have a research person that sits beside us for Moonshot. One of the things they commented is with the large number of colleges moving towards part-time, and again, we're 92%, that strategy that they've used in the past where you have momentum and you have credit is not working as well because so many of the students are part-time. But that is a way to track it. And I'm commenting about that because it's something specifically I've done in the past and it works incredibly well. Because in many cases, I'll say the one thing there is students passively move towards graduation. And they're not necessarily aware, even though we've got advisors and they can see their program plan. A lot of times it's not a very proactive strategy of graduation's coming. Hey, did you know? Here's how close you are. Why don't we help you with that? And it's a very different approach. And that's how colleges take that on. But we would have to develop some of those metrics and be able to report on them.
During our presidential search interviews and reviews of CVs and what have you, we've heard about efforts to do it as you described at other institutions. And also commentary that a yet even more valuable piece is to connect the students with an actual job that comes with graduation, not waiting till they get there or just about are there, but to start that process earlier. So I'm asking these questions because I'm looking for a way that will jumpstart this and improve these numbers. Looking at numbers that are based on a cohort that's 2 years old really doesn't tell us anything about whether what we're doing now is helping. And so I don't find that number useful. Maybe others do, but I don't. And I'm looking for something that will help us focus our attention. Was there one more question?
You had asked in particular about course success rate. They seem flat. Can we do anything to improve the outcome? You had an opinion about that or not?
Yeah, we just had our meeting Enrollment Integration Council meeting this morning, and we talked about the 2025 Strategic Enrollment Management Plan. And then this again show up on our list of strategies. So we kind of brainstormed ideas of how to improve the course success rate, which eventually will influence the graduation and transfer rate. So I think we are presenting next month.
To the board.
Yeah, to the
for
board.
Strategic Enrollment Management Plan.
So hopefully we'll give you more detail on it.
Please get us that as early as you can, so we have time to really think about it and dig deep in it. It's very important.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you both. Next is the Milwaukee PBS General Manager's Report, Vice President Debbie Henry.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Good evening, yes. As we at the end of March, our revenue was at about 5.3 million towards a $6.7 million goal. And our member count is really close. 39,510, we're looking for 40,000. So we'll be doing a special marketing campaign to get those last few hundred to get that 40,000. We are going to get that 40,000 by June 30th. And the goal. So we'll be participating also in a national campaign of public media days, May 1st and 2nd.
And Visit Milwaukee has tentatively agreed to be one of the 2 underwriters for the Violent Femmes Milwaukee Symphony program, which will air nationally this fall. If you didn't have a chance to see their new logo rollout, it was really incredible. Made me very proud to be a new Milwaukeean. Student
Whose logo are you talking about?
Visit Milwaukee.
Okay.
It's a really great
Yeah, I'm
campaign.
aware. I just want to make sure everybody else knew.
Yeah. Student Ops Day is May 4th on Channel 36. This is the 50th-ish year. Nobody knows exactly if it's 50 or 51 or 49, so we're going with 50. Students will be working in staff positions to kind of take over portions of the day, and student workshop projects will be shown along with some live segments of content of their choosing, which we know about ahead of time. You may recall previous mentions of me talking about working with the Journal Sentinel. And we've been working with them on a series of reports around manufacturing. I know it's gonna light you up. And they've been airing on 1036, and we'll have a couple more segments that will air before July, I believe, on 1036, about manufacturing coming back to the United States. And I'm excited to announce that we'll also be doing a town hall this fall here at MATC dedicated to this topic. It's perfect location. We'll be talking with some faculty to be part of it, some businesses, getting some student stories. It's projected that by year 2030, it's only 6 years away, which kind of blows my mind a little bit, that there will be 2.1 million jobs opens around manufacturing. In Wisconsin, that means about 120,000.
You say open, does that mean unfilled?
Unfilled, new. This I got from Journal Sentinel, so I don't have more information than just that.
Retirement.
It could be. I would think they're probably unfilled and some new. But here's the expert right here. So for Wisconsin, that's 120,000 jobs. That's a lot. And we're in the process of, like I said, collecting information and selecting a date. And we'll announce that as soon as we have it. Congratulations to the Milwaukee PBS staff for awards, nominations for the Wisconsin Broadcaster Association and the Milwaukee Press Club Awards. They're going to announce those on May 3rd and 4th. So I'll let you know at the next meeting what we won, which I'm sure we will. Great stories. Those who produce stories seen on Adelante, 1036, Black and Bow, Rhythm Cafe, as well as a documentary, A Hallowed Home for Heroes. All of them were nominated for different categories in both of those areas. So again, that'll be announced May 3rd and 4th. I'll bring those to the next meeting. The PBS annual meeting is the week of May 13th. So we look forward to seeing new series, specials, and documentaries for the coming year. Also children's programs. Just a note that PBS for the first time is going to be adding ASL interpreters to a lot of their kids shows, which is a huge accomplishment. So we're really proud of that. It's about 6 kids shows in the fall that will have that, and eventually all of the shows will have. That's my report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions in the room?
Programming for manufacturing. How about Rosie the Riveter or a Dirty Jobs or there's a group called Titans of CNC that are all over LinkedIn.
I've seen it,
I think you
I've seen it, yeah.
guys need to come up with something.
Okay, I'll get right on that.
Well, I suppose the question is, can we use the television's broadcasting to encourage people to think about education, manufacturing, and jobs in education,
Oh, yeah.
other than just a direct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be highlighting some of the careers that you can get a job in. What does it mean? What do you have to have in terms of an education to get to those jobs? One of the first conversations I had after I first arrived here was with Dr. Martin, and she was telling me about the automotive industry and how it's changed so much, not just with electrical vehicles, but just changed so much that you can earn a salary of 6 figures. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that. And what do you need to take in terms of science or technology kinds of classes in order to get you prepared for that? So it'll be, I think it'd be really good discussion from lots of different angles. And as we go further, I'll let you go. I'll let you know as we get further closer to it as the, specific topics. But we want to be able to provide information. We'd like to be able to match up businesses with students who are interested in those fields, but we haven't quite figured out how our staff can't do it. So we have to, haven't talked to anybody at MATC yet about that, but we'll be having some discussions about how can we make people available for people who are in the audience or people who want to call later.
That would be really good. Any questions from the directors online? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is board monitoring fiscal year 24 year-end projection of general funds. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. District Student Senate report.
Thank you. Trevor, forgetting how to
Mark.
That works really well.
There we go. Dr. Vicky Martin, members of the MATC District Board Administration. The District Student Government Association met on Friday, the 19th of April, for its last meeting of this year. The changes of the Constitution were passed by the students. We met with Holly Ryan from the Benedict Center and supported their library efforts in journaling at the MKE County Jail. We are doing one district and one individual fundraisers for them. We also approved funding for the Labor Ladies and their car show on June 1st, 2024, and Latinx for their year-end celebration. In Wisconsin Student Government, we met on 12th of February at Stevens Point, where we held elections for next year's board. At the West Allis, Student Life and Student Government are co-sponsoring the year-end of year lunch at campus on 4/29 with a live band and lunch catered by MATC. SGA also helped out with Earth Day campus cleanup on Monday, 4/22. Finally, I thank you all for your time and the opportunity to share this information with you today and keep you updated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any questions for Kimberly? Thanks. Next is board monitoring. I've already introduced you. You can come back. Just
All right, so tonight I'm going to be presenting an updated projection of this year's budget, projection of our general fund for this year's budget, and also a review of our FY25 preliminary operating budget. So both of these reports have been combined into one report, so we don't have to be switching between reports this time. So you have a 2-page colorful document in your packet. Just so you know what you're looking at, the first column in yellow is our most recent closed out year FY23 actuals. The second column is our current year budget in blue. The third column in green is the projection, which we're going to be focusing on tonight. And I gave you our first look at that projection last time we met. And the fourth column to the right is our FY25 preliminary operating budget, and that's in pink. So, and then your first page is all revenue and your second page is all expense. So let's focus first on a refresh of the FY24 projection. And that again is the column in green. And so at the March board meeting, as you may recall, I presented an initial estimate of this projection. And at that time, we were projecting an operating deficit of 900,000. So this time around, with another month of actual data and some further vetting of some areas that we felt that we could provide some additional savings, we are now projecting that we will end this fiscal year with a balanced budget. So I'm going to summarize what has changed. between this version of our projection versus the version that was presented to you in March. So again, we'll start with the first page, which is the revenue side. So really no significant changes to the revenue projection versus March. We are currently projecting that we're gonna come in overall favorable to budget. We projected that the last time too. The primary change that you're seeing on the revenue side is that we increased our interest income estimate. As actual data was higher than we expected, and as was pointed out by Justin Fisher earlier, the market is really still volatile. So that is really good news for the institution. We really earned a lot of interest income revenue. So this brought up our institutional revenue for this year in row 20 versus what we reported in March. That was one of the areas that changed. In addition, with the unexpected increase in interest income earnings, we decreased the source of expected funding from PERF strategic reserves slightly for this year to be able to use these funds more evenly between this year and next year. So we were able to reduce that amount for this year slightly and increase what we're going to use for our forthcoming budget. Essentially, in terms of our sources of revenue, those are the two changes. Everything else was very similar to what I reported last time. So we can turn now, if you would like, to the expense page, and that's page 2. Again, we're still focusing on the green column, our projection column, and also very minimal change on the expense side of our projection versus what I presented to you in March. As I mentioned in March, we continue to experience a significant upward trend in the volume of high-paying claims. These values continue to reflect that. We were able to work with our health plan administrator to assist us with a more accurate estimate of savings from stop-loss reimbursement, pooling credits, and pharmacy rebates. And we really spent a little bit of time with him in helping to, because we have such a high number of claims, we want to make sure that we're not overestimating on our savings. So we were able to bring those dollars down a little bit. And I guess in the end, we're feeling a little bit more confident about what we're projecting on the health insurance side with those savings factored in. So again, primarily with this current year's projection, interest income change and there's other minor changes throughout the document to incorporate our most current actual revenue and expense figures that's incorporated in. And that's allowed us to present a balanced budget. So that's great news for FY 2024. We're currently very confidently projecting a balanced budget. Well, that's not to say that insurance claims could do something weird again, but that's kind of where we stand. And we're really currently still now that kind of feeds into our next year's budget. So I guess I can pause right now and ask if there's any questions about the projection or anything that I can clarify for you.
Director Pence.
Can you just explain the HERF strategic reserves and student bad debt and what that actually is?
Okay, so during the pandemic, we received HERF funding.
Could you tell us what that stands for?
Higher education something relief.
Emergency relief.
Emergency relief fund, that was it. Thank you. So we received a pot of money that was split between using it towards student scholarships, a student portion, and an institutional portion. So we had the option to use more of our institutional allotment towards student scholarships, and we took that option and we gave away a certain portion of our institutional award for student scholarships. But on the institutional side, one of the criteria for receiving institutional HERF funds was to demonstrate that we lost revenue as a result of the pandemic. And so we were able to do our calculations and present that, and we did receive a certain allotment that could be used to offset our lost revenue. And we took it in our general fund, and we also were able to take it for our enterprise units. So we took that money, and one of the reasons why we really went after those funds is because once once you are able to demonstrate that you lost revenue related to the pandemic, you really didn't have to go through any more hurdles to say, okay, well, I need to spend it on COVID mitigation strategies or this way or that way. We took the money because essentially we lost those funding sources. And then what we did is we allowed it to drop into our reserve. And then we segregated that piece that went into our reserve and classified it as strategic reserve. And then a decision was made to use those strategic reserve funds to help offset our bad debt expense and to continue to help our students by writing off their bad debts. And we actually are writing off bad debts that were incurred during the pandemic. So it all kind of ties together to assist our students and also trying to be very strategic with the institution's funds. I hope that helped.
How much is left in that strategic reserve at the end of this fiscal year?
We're taking 2 million this year, so we'll take another 1.5 million next year. So it was 3.5.
Is that the end of it then?
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be 1.5 million left after this year.
Correct. Yes.
Did we put those funds into the quote unquote strategic reserves so they would not be in our regular reserves and then look like we are taking money out of our regular reserves?
Well, a reserve is a reserve, but we segregated that reserve, and we were very intentional about it. We are technically a little bit above our reserve policy, and we're very aware of what those, of where we are, because it does and could, if we dip down too far, affect our bond rating. But we've been very intentional about all of it, and these decisions were around that. So we create, our operating budget cycles so that we don't, obviously we build budgets that are balanced so that we don't dip into those reserves, but this was very intentional. So we segregated it and now we can use it as an other funding source, but it does reduce those reserves. So.
Any other questions in the room? Any questions from the directors online?
Yes.
Dr. Najib.
Yeah. If you could explain again, I see the expenses, the benefit and discretionary expenses are increasing between year 23-24 and 24-25, but the wages is less. If you could explain it a little bit more, and also if you could tell me if the projected salary increase for full and part-time employees are included in that lower budget for 2024-25.
Sure. So the next thing I'd like to present is our 25.
Point of order. I'm sorry. So we're gonna move into that now?
Yes, because
Okay.
that can answer, then I have
Okay.
some comments about that. Okay, so now we're switching gears and we're looking at our FY 25 preliminary operating budget, which is reflected in the column to the far right, the pink column. So our revenue assumptions, so again, page 1 is the revenue. These revenue assumptions were also presented at our March board meeting. And today, again, I'm just going to summarize any changes to what was presented in March on the revenue side. So the only changes to the forthcoming next year budget versus what I presented in March have to do again with interest income. We brought that interest income budget up a little bit for next year. Did you have a question?
No, go ahead, finish.
And then the other piece is the shifting of a portion of the allocation of the HERF strategic reserves to 25 to again allow us to use these funds in both years evenly. So those are the only changes from what you saw last month in March for the revenue side. And now on the expense side, you're seeing this for the first time.
Yep.
So let me walk through this with you. So if you turn to page 2 of your document, again, focusing on the pink column. So while we'll start with the wages. So while the wage budget does factor in a placeholder for a cost of living adjustment, we are budgeting an overall reduction versus our current year projection in wage expense. But if you look at and I'll explain why. But if you look at what we budgeted in 24, you can see that we are ahead of where we are budgeting 118 million, whereas we budgeted 116 million in 24. And our most recent actual wage budget was 113.2. So we are looking at a reduction in FY 25. And the reduction is attributable to, again, a calculated vacancy savings expectation. This year we're factoring in 6.5 million for that, and that's based again on the time it takes, the average time it takes to fill a position and our current amount of vacancies. Also, in addition to that, we are kind of revamping our position prioritization and position control methodology, and we're really taking a more proactive approach to staffing through really judicious position management. So for example, as vacancies occur, we'll evaluate the position. We're going to be evaluating consolidating roles, possibly streamlining processes via, those positions that lend themselves to being able to be made more efficient through AI and other technology and using data analytics. And with the focus will be, so we're going to be very intentional, again, very intentional with staffing to make sure that it's aligned with our operational reality, so that we're not just backfilling vacancies. The focus is on optimizing our organizational effectiveness and really on sustainable operations. So we have a new plan to prioritize positions, and that is going to be effective in the new fiscal year. But again, it's this vacancy savings, and it's there's really nothing more to it than these factors. Go ahead.
My concern about it is already we heard the report from the public that there's many positions are still not filled for full-time teachers. So if we're planning to cut the budget for the year 24-25 already, as if we're planning not to hire more teachers, for example. So that's my concern I'm wondering why we're cutting the budget if we still have position not filled.
Well, the position prioritization methodology that we use, we really just use that for our staff and administration. So there's different methods that will be used to make sure that the allocation of resources on the faculty side, that we are not, we're not getting ourselves in trouble, and those conversations probably could be made with somebody on the academic side to be a little bit more clear, but we're really, these position control measures are really reflecting on the staff and administration, as are the savings that of the 6.5 million in the vacancy savings, the calcs that we've done on that side.
If you consider also the projected salary increases, those that mean really the budget even less available for hiring now. Do you understand what I mean?
Could you repeat that question?
Since there's projected salary increases for full-time and part-time employees, so if you count that means the available budget to hire new staff is even less.
Actually, so the way the vacancy savings work is we budget every single one of those positions that you're talking about. And then at the bottom, we net out what we think are reasonable savings. So those budgets, they will have a legal appropriation. There will be a provision in the budget for all of those positions, but based on calculations that we've made, and we've done the same thing in the past where we are calculating based on our vacancies what we expect to save. That kind of comes off the bottom, but we still have those appropriations in place to spend the money. I hope that helps. Did that?
I don't want to see in next meeting, for example, say, oh, we don't have the budget to hire more teachers if we need more teachers.
Okay, well, we certainly, that's like a conversation that's going to involve others. I mean, that's a bigger conversation, and then that's not our, yeah.
Can I ask?
Director Baker.
Yeah, so I'm having a lot of difficulty. And I don't have a lot of clarity, and in case you notice, that bothers me when I don't have a lot of clarity. So I right now, and I understand Dr. Najib's frustration, because I have 3 big buckets that are telling me as a board member, I'm going to approve a $182 million budget. And I have 3 big buckets. There's a wages bucket. I don't know, I have administrative wages in there, I have staff wages, I have faculty wages, I have all kinds of wages in there. The benefits are generally a formula that you get off of wages and our performance. And then I have discretionary. I mean, that's our contracts, that's stuff we buy, it's like all kinds of things. What I have here is, I mean, I said this, I believe, to the board chair, I feel like I'm at the 100,000-foot level, like I'm almost in outer space and I'm having a little trouble breathing. I don't need to see the ground, okay? I don't need to see every position, I don't need to see every department. But when I want to see a budget, and perhaps this speaks a little to Dr. Najib's concern, as a board member, I want to build a budget that starts with the classroom in the middle of it. And everything builds out from there.
Sure.
Okay, because the most important thing we do is we teach students and we provide students with services. So I want to put that student in the middle, and then everything gets built around it. I can't, as a board member looking at policy, appropriately say, do I agree with this, unless I can see a little more of that detail.
Certainly.
How much of this goes here, how much of it goes there. And again, I don't need to see every department, I don't need to see whatever, but something that helps us understand what it is we're looking at. Because there are savings that we may be able to ask questions about because of our experiences, like, well, are we looking at this savings? Are we looking at that savings? And this, I don't mean for you to have to come up with all of this right now or even answer this, but I will say, if you want me to approve a budget in May, I need more information.
Okay.
This is too high.
Oh, yeah, we'd be happy to provide more information. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, right after this is another item on the agenda. I know more about where we're spending our capital improvement dollars. I can, like, room by room say where we're spending it. But I don't have that much information on our budget and the people in the institution.
Okay, I can certainly get more information for you on that.
Bravo.
Director Burris, do you have something to add?
She really just summed it up for me. I just felt like this was like a high overview that I just really did not understand. My question really was like, what is discretionary? What falls into it? I think Dr. Najib also spoke about wages, so I was wondering whether or not faculty projected salaries next year was also in wages. So you guys spoke to some of my concerns already. I think that was it.
Director Morrow McCundy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, not Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
I'll take the promotion if you want. It's
When you talk about savings and you are able to save money by holding positions vacant, does that mean that you don't intend to fill them?
Absolutely, no, I mean, not in every case, the whole intent, and these methodologies we've been using since I've been here. And in terms of like establishing a vacancy savings, and that vacancy savings is it's looking at what your vacancies are and understanding, again, what it takes to fill these vacancies, and that varies. It varies based on the market. So we've, did you want to interject? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think
Sure.
some of the vacancy is, it takes me a month to hire somebody, so I'm not paying salary for that month. So
Right.
it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not gonna hire it, but I know it's gonna take me amount of time, so I can take that out of the budget. So I don't think we should make an assumption that that is a reduction of or intent to not fill, but there is natural savings every time you have an open position because you're not spending it.
Thanks, because that was my next question.
Yes, right. And, you know, some of the comments that I made about being intentional about staffing are when we have a vacancy, we would like to evaluate that vacancy. Certainly, we're not gonna say, well, we're not gonna fill it, but we wanna look at that vacancy and always be mindful of making sure that you know, that we're allocating our resources effectively, and if that position can be combined with another position or whatever, but, you know, it's just being more vigilant, and I guess, just not just backfilling every vacancy. We certainly don't say, no, that the intent is not to fill these positions.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that clarification, Director Case.
Any other questions, comments in the room?
Go ahead.
So we're probably also balancing retirements versus
Yes.
new hires, and maybe they're not at the same level as the tenured people.
Right, and differences in wages
But yeah,
for entry level.
wages are higher now. In general.
Yeah, it depends on the position though, too. I know in my world, if I have an open position, I can promote somebody internally and maybe then I backfill at a lower level, right? So then that vacancy amount is a little bit different, right? So it shifts a bit. So it depends on.
Director Burris?
My question would, I guess, like, will we get like a preview before the board meeting?
Yes, this is just a preliminary.
I mean, of
Yeah,
like the
we-
updated.
A little more
stuff.
detail.
With more detail.
Sure.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
10,000, yes. Just bring me down to 10,000. I'll be good.
And then
I
you'll be like, can I go back to 30?
I have one more question for you. You said that there is a new prioritization plan.
Well, we're working on a process that's a little bit more, and again, a little bit more robust and intentional. We're doing a project that kind of, part of it initiated in the business office and part in HR, but we're looking at head count across the entire college, looking at where we were prior to the pandemic and where we are now, and kind of, you know, looking at the roadmap, and so that it can help to inform decisions about, you know, where we were, where we once were, where we now are after the pandemic, after implementing guided pathways. And just kind of be very, as we continue to fill positions and fill vacancies, and look at the functionality of a department and how that might have changed post-COVID or post-guided pathways. Are we really deploying these resources in the way that we should be? Can we, and in some cases that might mean we need to hire somebody more. In some cases that might mean we can, you know, this retiring full-time position can turn into a part-time position. It's just being very intentional and aware of when we're, you know, when we're filling positions, that we are doing that reflection.
Good. That sounds like a very good thing. I'd like to get some more detail about that
Absolutely.
from whoever is the most appropriate source, if it's not you.
Okay.
But again, before the next board meeting, I think that there is a consensus on the board that we want to get further below the top lines with regard to everything that affects the budget than we typically have in the last few years. And so I think that's one way to do it. We may have different opinions about what should be prioritized. I don't know. Director Baker?
Yeah, one other thing that I might suggest for the board to consider next year is we do have task forces that we set up on occasion. And this might be something that would help the board if we had a board task force, couple of members who, as the new budget is starting to be built, you know, in January and February and that sort of thing, that there is a group of us who are willing to work with the administrator, take a look at it so that we can then bring that information to our colleagues somewhat digested. And that I think can help also. I think we want to feel informed about the choices that we have to make.
I love I love the collaboration, truly.
You're proposing this for the next cycle,
Yeah, next cycle.
not the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it'd be like way late now.
All right, thank you very much.
Excuse me, just one more thing. I want to, can I speak?
Tina has her hand up as well.
Yes, Dr. Najib, go ahead.
So just I want to tie my question, because also if you look at the dashboard under employee headcounts, you see the faculty number from April 23 to April 24 is decreased 1% from 518 to 511. So that's why my concern, are we gonna save money because we're not filling or we're not hiring more faculty people? You can answer it later, but that's also the tie with my question.
Okay.
Okay.
Director Owen Moore?
Thank you. I just had a question about, I know that we've heard from staff at different times speaking about when there are these vacancies, oftentimes they're doing double duty or, having additional responsibility, and those vacancies really impact the staff who are working and taking on that. Do we have a budgeted amount that accounts for those kind of overloads of work or additional responsibilities that staff may be taking on during times of vacancy?
Yes, we definitely put that, incorporate that into our budgets.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important to just be conscious of that when we do have this amount of vacancies that we're thinking about.
Dr. Martin, did you have something to add?
I think we've been here for a really long time, but I think I really appreciate these comments. I think when we have our budget that's been basically the same for many years, except maybe a little bit of increase, we have to really look at how that matches with when we had a lot more FTEs with the numbers that we have now. We're looking at what those areas of growth are, which you're hearing some of those, and what areas we can stop doing or do differently. And that's what I think that Eva's talking about in terms of, what strategies are we trying to deploy, and being a lot more intentional about looking at that and trying to figure out ways, more effective and efficient ways to do the work. We of course want to make sure that we have faculty to teach our courses, but we have to look at a lot of what the loads are right now and all of those things, which are really important. Since the pandemic, I know that we have led to lower class sizes because we want to make sure we get as many students as we can through this institution or the workforce. That's really important, but there's a way to find some efficiencies. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. And we have to work together to do that. My team has been working on trying to figure out what those strategies are. And so you'll hear more of those details. Typically, this is what you hear at this point, what you're saying that you'd like to hear it sooner. But that's part of the budget process of like, this is where we're at right now. We're gonna get more into the details the next time. So I just wanted to say, we're working on where growth is and where we're finding areas we don't need to grow.
Great. Thank you. Next is Chris Johnson again on the capital construction recommendations. Welcome back.
Hello again. I'm here to answer any questions, field any comments about the presentation of the recommended capital project requests for the upcoming fiscal year.
Any questions from the directors online? Any questions from the directors in the room? We need a couple of moments to look at this, or we?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Well,
Director
and
Baker?
this is aligned with the strategic plan that, these are all, I remember the conversation about the athletic locker rooms last year.
Mhm.
I remember we had a big, like, this is gonna cost, how much? And the explanation. And so I appreciate you coming back to that today, also. And I do notice there's a 1.5 emergencies contingency fund, and that just will rest in, assuming there are special projects. Something breaks, we gotta fix it. and
That's
that sort of
correct.
thing.
Yep.
Any other questions in the room? One more time online. All right, thank you. That was easy enough. Next is the West Town Green update. Executive Vice President Philip King and Equan Burrows.
Chris is gonna join us for questions.
Okay.
Burrows. Good evening, everybody. Chief Foley, so we have the presentation up. We'd sent the video ahead and you'd had that opportunity, but we do have the presentation up as well. How would you like us to proceed? Do you want us to walk through the presentation or? What would you like
I don't
us to
think
do?
so. If for no other reason, because I want to strongly encourage my colleagues to be sure they do look at it all before they get here. Because we don't have time to do it. That's why we do those presentations. But let's see if, well, one question I have for you is you were here as we heard some of the public comments raising some of the same issues. And at least one of them was we need some training for the CAs, and another was we need better communication with the school. You've talked in your presentation about, I'm going to call it a task force. I don't remember exactly what it was called. People that are going to meet, people at the college are going to meet every couple of weeks to talk about how things are going. How often will there be communication to the residents about those issues, and how will that work?
Sure. You know, at this point, I'm going to turn to Dean Burrows. He's done most of the work, so I would ask for him to respond to some of that. And some of those were questions you asked us as well.
Absolutely. Chair Foley, President Martin and the board. My name is Dean Burrows. I do serve as Dean of the Student Experience here at MATC. And I have the pleasure of working collaboratively with a number of individuals on a bi-weekly basis that include our marketing office, our student accounts office, financial aid offices, our finance office, including a number of other departments, to ensure that we are engaging properly and appropriately with the West Town Green and our contractual obligations as well, which again, I want to kind of segment those out in regard to the agreement that's been made in regard to the contract with West Town Green and our developers of J. Jeffers. But nevertheless, I want to talk about some of the things that, again, you did submit to us in regard to respond to here today. And again, anything else that we may have questions on I cannot answer, I'll be sure to make sure to get back to the team collaboratively and get those answers to the board at large. So I want to start there. Some of the questions you did ask, I think there were about 9 of them. I'm going to go through some of the highlighted pieces if you could.
You can address them however it makes sense to do it efficiently.
Righteous. And I think in this way, we'll go straight to it. So changes in structures and processes since the beginning of the academic year was one of the primary questions. And with that said, some of the primary changes since that time contain the logic of development of a feedback tool, a survey tool that has just been deployed just a month ago in regard to really wanting to make sure we're listening to the students that are living at West Town Green. The inclusion of West Town Green is an option in all systems reporting forms to report issues and concerns that, again, that we're assuring that folks have that button to click. I just met with a number of folks, including our partners at Fast Fund and Elsa, who we spoke to earlier today last week, actually, where we had a very constructive conversation that brought up a number of ideas that we actually were able to put in place in real time. And again, by tomorrow, we'll have all of our systems updated and forms updated to include reporting ideas that include West Town Green for students that may have issues, comments, or concerns regarding the property. Increase presence and enhance availability of resource information through our Student Resource Center specialist. There is a position that was just hired recently within the last 3 months, rehired actually within the last 3 months that is housed within our Student Resource Center. And again, my Student Resource Center staff is in the back here. Usually they're with us, we wave at us. But again, they do amazing work, as again, also said earlier today, in regard to engaging and supporting our students through the auspice of a number of different spaces and opportunities, including our emergency assistance grants, food pantries now located at every campus, and particularly engaging with West Town Green residents and making sure services are there and rendered early and often. The next point that was described was resolution of issues brought to the board, to the directors in public comments. We know there were many over time, and we worked diligently and deliberately with Justin Johnson, who is the manager of West Town Green, in order to alleviate some of the concerns in real time and then work together over time in order to shift some of the priorities and some of our processes and procedures in order to address them more effectively as we move forward. So again, over the past 6 months, issues, particularly those related to the SRC process or the student resources that have been given to those students at West Town Green have been addressed. and the focus on improving the roommate selection process is ongoing with the management company, collaborating in the management company's formal process through an effective approach. So again, they're working. We want to make sure that we give credence to F3, our partners at F3, who is the management company, to make sure that they are hearing these concerns and are able to process and improve on their side in order to provide quality and valuable services to our students. The management of resident life in general. I know there was a comment that Dr. King made in the actual presentation. And again, we're reviewing our contractual obligations there as well of our management company and the responsibilities to manage the facilities at large, which is underway. And we anticipate Dr. King working with legal to get feedback soon. And we'll provide a timetable on the completion of that particular review as soon as possible. Bi-weekly meetings. Yes, we do have bi-weekly meetings that have been going on since the inception of the opening of our space, which again, those teams that I spoke of, including our marketing team, our student resource team, and the like, to come together on a bi-weekly basis and discuss all elements in which how we can improve and actually serve our students within the spheres in which those departments sit. They will go ahead. How far back? For about 3 years since the inception of the space. Again, this is our third year having, and again, just for some percentages, we've been at a 95% fill rate at Westtown for about 2.5 years now. So that's exciting. And we started in COVID, coming out of a COVID year. So we know what those percentages were. Again, they continue to identify and foster a process of improvements to develop new engagement strategies for our student population. And again, addressing miscommunication on certain individuals that may be traversing the space at Westtown. We know that there are a number of types of individuals that could be in our building, right? Those are guests of our students, right? Those are persons that are particularly in for a time through our transitional program. And then other frames that, again, have been discussed at length by others that have viewed and seen and experienced those individuals in the space. And we want to make sure that our management company is aware. We've been able to make sure that they're aware as soon as it's said so that they can address those issues when it comes to security and safety. Communication about financial matters. We plan to significantly involve our financial aid department in the upcoming months, and particularly this includes regularly monthly engagement opportunities and continued support from our dedicated specialists who work with Westtown in particular. So we have a financial aid specialist that are working with the students at Westtown for those students that are paying their rents with financial aid funds. So they have a dedicated individual that's currently working with them. Management will also maintain an informative communication through individual emails, posted signs, materials, and multiple one-on-one conversations, both in person and phone via phone. Feedback and surveys. Again, our recent surveys indicate an overall satisfaction of 4.3 out of 5 on a scale of 5. Notable areas of improvement, though, do echo the statements that have been brought to this board, which include roommate selection, right, in the process of maintenance issues, which are currently being addressed in real time. Again, there is a management company that's working with us in order to assure that those things are addressed over time. Responsive protocols when the manager is unavailable. That is a big deal, and I'm glad to announce that not only do we have the community assistants, who again we hope to continue to develop and engage as we hear the information regarding training being a necessity and a function that we need to continue to undergird and to particularly support. But we also have in a 24-hour emergency contact number available through the management company, F3 in and of itself, that then therefore after gets in contact with somebody immediately. So that student can talk to somebody about emergencies that are happening in real time. And so again, making sure that's known through a number of ways, including emails and signs and orientations that are held on a yearly basis. Hub resource, so we're talking about our student resource center operations outside of normal hours as well was another question in that regard. And again, we haven't experienced many outside of normal hour resource questions or concerns as it pertains to the resource center in and of itself. But again, it is there ready to serve students and has been doing so for a time now. And so with that, we appreciate the time and attention to these matters. And we are committed to continue to the process improve as it pertains to Westtown and working with our collaborative partners to provide the most valuable experience for those students living there.
So I don't normally lead the questions here, but let me just follow up on this. Okay. So we have had people at, I think, the last 6 board meetings, maybe more, raising concerns about things happening at Westtown or not happening at Westtown, okay? And the reason I asked how the structure of how the college is dealing with this has changed, if it has changed, since the beginning of the fiscal year, is because if there haven't been any changes, then what we're doing isn't adequate, because we're getting all of these concerns expressed. And it sounds like the structure hasn't changed. So I don't understand why we should expect different outcomes at this point. Second, the common thread in my mind of the comments and the questions that have been raised here is I don't know who to talk to. Okay. I went to the general manager or the on-site manager's office and he wasn't there, and I'm making up a name now. Mary told me the answer was X, but it wasn't X, and now I don't know who to talk to. Okay. So is there a place that everybody walks past every day that says, if you have questions about X, call this person at this number?
From the management perspective, yes.
What about from the school perspective?
The answer,
My financial aid money is screwed up because my rent didn't get paid. I don't know who to talk to. Is that name and purpose and number where they can't miss seeing it if they want to find it?
I think we have room to grow in that space. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
That's, we need, that's not hard,
Not at all.
right? And that's something I think we need to hear has been done, not that we are looking for strategic ways to improve it.
Sure.
Okay. It's the little things that are going to matter a lot here. I hear that you've got a lot of people thinking about this now. What I don't hear is that we've really solved these problems yet. Some perhaps. But the dichotomy between, oh, that's the real estate side and, oh, that's the college side is something that I don't think is clearly enough delineated to the students at issue or the CAs or perhaps even the building management. That all needs to be really clear and explicit and not something you look up online. You should be able to look it up online, but you shouldn't have to look it up online. I'm done talking. Any other comments or questions in the room?
I just have a quick question.
Let's let Director Burris go first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think my main concerns over the past couple months are bigger concerns of, I guess, things that you guys haven't been able to tackle as of yet. And I would say that the safety of the students is priority. Is there a way for us to get more detailed information on what that structure and the involvement of public safety looks like at Westtown Green? Have you surveyed the students on whether or not they feel safe and comfortable, you know, in their homes or whatnot? Also, the conflict resolutions, that seemed like a area that we could grow in for sure. And I think that will obviously be tied to the training and support services that the CAs and others will have in connection to conflict and safety. I will also say that I think there were some great suggestions made by the chair and in open comments that we could probably like look to make sure that these things are addressed. But going back to the public safety portion, I don't know how much information you guys can provide, but I would like information of like, you know, are there cameras in this space or not? How many complaints on average? I think we had that last month in our own public safety reporting. So I would like to see if we can get something like that reported to the board. And then last thing was the chart here. Is there a way for us to like identify a little bit better what the makeups of those bedrooms and stuff and the cost of them are? I've worked with many MATC students in my role in housing with helping pay some of their rent. So I know it doesn't really look like what I'm seeing here. And I think even that's a point of clarification for the students that live there as well.
And if I may, and Dr. King, please jump in as you see fit. There are a lot of nuances as it pertains to West Town Green that I would like to be able to give to this board in a way that will be most effective. I know that today's conversation was kind of nuclear or driven down to the questions at hand initially and not to the entire scope. And again, there's a lot of detail that goes into every single complaint. And I can guarantee you that within 24 to 48 hours of the complaints that have been brought to this board, that our team, that collaborative element, has immediately worked to solve those issues. First things first. Secondly, there are some larger structural issues that, again, as I say, as a process improvement person within the institution, I will never say we've met that mark until we have, again, consistent marks that reign high. When it comes to our, what slide is that, Dr. King, in regard to our results from the survey? Just of recent, not debunking anything else outside the frame, but just as a couple of weeks ago, we had pretty high marks as it pertained to the 4 levels. What is your overall experience at West Town? At a 4.3 out of 5. What is the timeliness with facility requests, which is at a 4.4 out of 5. How would you rate your value of housing as an option at West Town Green at a 4.32 out of 5? And how would you rate your interactions with staff at West Town at a 4.48? Now, again, those things don't particularly speak to every person's experience at West Town. And again, we value those person's experiences. And again, I will never discredit those functions, but there is elements to it that need to be fully understood. And I would love to be able to give a holistic approach and presentation to the logic of what we've done over time and in real time in regard to addressing some of those concerns, safety concerns. To speak to safety in particular, yes, we are tied at the hip with public safety, with the management company, and with the MPD. Be it that it is a contractually separate function when it comes down to how we manage it. Our public safety does not manage and respond to those particular calls. They are MPD calls, right? And then we are referred, well, those particular information based upon clery reporting does come back to the college, and we make sure that we adjudicate them as we need to when they get back here. Moreover, we do have a pretty extensive camera system as well at West Town that is pretty in-depth and pretty secure as it pertains to knowing who, what, when, where, and why. And so when we review these cases, we're able to get MPD actual video clips of what's going on in real time and so forth. So again, as it pertains, again, going back to your point, Chair Foley, as it pertains to the function of understanding one singular element, we are still developing our positions to assure that we are surrounding this logic in a way that is clear and consistent, and particularly provides a person that can be the one on call outside of the F3 partners. Again, it's been our practice over time to assure students get to the on-site persons, not coming to the college, right? Because again, we work on an 8-hour basis, right, in that regard. And in that space, there is 24-hour coverage in order to handle issues in real time. And so how that is managed, we have a lot more room to cover and to particularly find best ways through. But at the end of the day, again, we're going to work hard to do so collaboratively. I just serve as the chair of the logic. Again, we work collaboratively in those respective spaces to ensure that it happens. But I think overarching, we're making qualifiable strides to kind of cure some of the issues that are happening.
Director Mendieta Rones.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the survey because that was my question. I'm having a hard time believing that those numbers are actually accurate.
Gotcha.
We know, we have over 200 residents, right?
No, 189, about 170 right now.
And 86 were surveyed?
Roughly 81. Last time I heard 81, yes.
Okay, well, that's what I got from looking at the video. So it's
Yes.
about 46% response.
Correct, yeah.
Is that because they didn't respond or because we didn't survey them?
So we actually
So
had
the survey went to everybody.
great question. Now, this was actually an appreciation event that was planned and scheduled by our Student Resource Center team. And we wanted to be there in place, in the space, and be able to engage with them in real time and be able. So for those who walk by for the 6 hours of when we engage, our Student Resource team in particular, that's where we actually populated that feedback and was able to speak to students in real time about issues that have been brought, and then ultimately make sure and follow up on things that particularly have been solved or have not been solved. Majority
You're able to send an electronic survey to all of them so that, because I mean, and I know that from the restaurant industry, they'll tell you to their face that they're happy and then they turn around and tell somebody else the truth.
Agreed.
So I'm having a really hard time believing that those numbers are accurate.
So our plan now, and Dr. King, again, it was the committee that came up with these decisions in regard to what we do now and what we do next. Particularly, not only decided to do an event now, all right, with our resource center staff, making sure that we're visible in there, but also to do one on a semesterly basis. All right, and the plan is now to, upon move out, to make sure that we implement move in and move out function structures of feedback and then intermediary survey points throughout semesters as well. So we are increasing those levels, and that's one of the major points from this board and from the comments from students that come to this board, that we are increasing the feedback element of. So much so that we are sharing that our complaint form is the primary way to get in contact with the college in regard to issues that you experience. That has not been fully understood by all persons. And so now understanding that and refining that complaint form to assure that it has the Westtown Green button drop down. If you've never seen the form, it's pretty intuitive. You can include parties, you can include locations. We are constantly improving that function. And currently, again, as of tomorrow, it will be fully updated to have all of those things ready, available for students to be able to submit their complaints and or their concerns to those forms. Nevertheless, I understand your thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Case.
So we've heard multiple public comments around residents that are neurodivergent, that are having struggles with roommates, things like that. An event where I have to walk through and be asked in public does not seem like a very inclusive way to get feedback. So can we, is there other ways to make sure, we even heard today, right, about people learn in different ways, people respond in different ways. Certainly we've talked about making sure the information is available on signs, online, wherever. Can we also look at better ways to get their feedback and ways that are more comfortable? Maybe some of the student representatives can help with feedback on that.
Definitely. Again, we do not have one way. We are taking the leadership, taking direction from leadership as well. And leadership did direct our committee to execute something in real time right now. And that was decided upon as a committee to do it as an event right now. But again, those spaces and survey points will be made over time. And again, I'm not here to particularly apologize for all the missteps, but I will say that all those missteps in real time were addressed, have been addressed, and will continue to be addressed as they get to us. And we hope that our complaint form and the deployment of that to all of our residents at Westtown creates a open and free, transparent cycle of letting us know what's going on right now. Because again, we have a great response rate when it comes to handling issues that get to the appropriate parties, right? And so that's a primary element in regard to that particular point. But survey, and we will do more and more often. Early and often is my motto, and we'll continue to do so.
Director Baker.
Yep, so I'll just hammer that one home one
Please,
more time.
please.
And I think what I've heard is, like, just send it to everybody. It shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
Electronically, piece of paper, just so that everybody gets it, and then we'll get feedback that perhaps could help us more than just the students who come to an event, which may be students who are happier or more engaged or less engaged. I don't know. We could find that out though if we give it to everybody. That's number one. Number two, I was a little concerned, and I appreciate the work that's being done to address the concerns. And certainly we have heard a lot of concerns, and I appreciate this sort of just in time. Let's get in there and fix this. I was a little concerned when I heard there's a lot of nuance to the Westtown Green. I appreciate policy and procedure more than I do nuance. And so I would like to see us, earlier today, I think we heard about SOP, standard operating procedures. It sounds like in the course of the problem solving, we need some ongoing standard procedures for these issues so that we're not just putting fires out, which it sounds like we've been doing a lot of, but that we're actually developing policies for how we do this thing. And it's the first time we've done this thing. So I appreciate the difficulties in it. But I think that that's where we moved to.
As it pertains to nuance, the logic in which I was looking to convey was more about the individual cases of the issues that are brought. They are very complex at times and include things that particularly aren't necessarily all expressed in one time. And sometimes enable or disable movement on solving and or addressing things. And so with that, I'm trying to be overbroad there, but when it comes to nuance, it's not our policies. We do have policies and procedures. We do follow them. And again, the function of the management of the space is through our management partner. I never want to step on that. I want to make sure that it's a clean, clear line, a delineation that we are tasking and paying a company to manage the space. And we've had two, just to be clear. We've had another company in BMOC that was changed due to our leadership discussions and decisions that were made in order to move to another company, F3, which has been doing a great job at again responding in real time and then addressing for overtime change. And so I understand your logic. I can't wait to continue to speak freely and be able to give you guys as much information as you need in order to fully understand the scope of thoughts in which we are conveying. But again, as it pertains to this particular report, it was pretty nuclear to the questions at hand. And I can't wait to be able to continue to share all the great things, because on a majority scale, there are a number of surveys that are currently out there, including our Google surveys, Yelp, and all the other functions. Again, those unbiased things that are kind of anonymous in certain spaces that are still at that of a 5-point scale, still within the high 4s as it pertains to how individuals feel about West Town Green. And again, I'm not the manager, and he couldn't be here today. So Justin Johnson would definitely be here to be able to sit next to and be able to answer some direct questions as well as it pertains as to how it works and how the management company also holds themselves accountable to the functions of what is reported at this table. And so again, I look forward to being able to continue to keep this line of communication open, as I said with Elsa and our leads at the FAST Fund, to assure that we are communicating more regularly. That was my first meeting with that team. And again, we want to continue to have that happen on a pretty regular basis as well.
Dr. Najib?
Yeah. I just want to give another example. For example, on slide number 3, if you get slide number 3. So as you see here, you're comparing the downtown Milwaukee average rent with the West Town Green average rent. And then you say all utility included, Wi-Fi, gym, and everything. And today in a public comment, we had a student who complained that West Town Green charging them for electricity, although her air conditioning not even working. So is that true? I don't know. If you say it's utility included, how come we're charging for it? Even a little bit.
Within 24 hours, I'm more than certain that Justin Johnson will respond. The manager, again, we don't necessarily hold ourselves contingent to those development pieces, but we can definitely bring back the results from the management company they're in. Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts, Dr. King?
Only that thank you for the question, and it is confusing. And some of the information was conveyed by the management company. Actually, they provided this. So we'd have to go back and specifically clarify why there's an inconsistency with what was stated, and we'll respond. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. One very quick suggestion. You need to set expectations for things like how quickly things will be repaired after they are reported. I don't want to suggest that we don't want to hear from our students, but I would like this system to be working well enough that we don't have to have somebody from West Town come every meeting with an issue. Okay, that's our goal here, is to get to the point where we don't really need to be involved.
Ours too. The committee echoes that sentiment fully. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First and foremost, Dean Bose, thank you for being here. I want to bring to the board's attention the biases in survey taking that exist. They are often used to fit a particular narrative. That's like the nature of surveys, and then the data is given out so that it can fit a particular narrative. Now, what that narrative is, I don't necessarily know, but that's what it's used for. That's what they're used for typically. And I know that we were not able to respond to the things that we heard earlier. However, I think there was a very broad, but multifaceted manner in which the complaints were laid out by the individual that testified earlier. And one of my challenges is that, and what I've heard before, is that students seem to be taking things into their own hands. When something is not happening, they say, well, I'll just go ahead and I'll try to see what I can do. And in many facets of life, when you do that, injuries and things happen that way. And so I think that a lot of our students are saying, well, like the homeless situation, well, somebody's not supposed to be here. We need to remove them. I'm gonna go and ask them myself. And they don't know, they could be putting themselves in harm's way in some way, shape, or form. And to the chair's point, there is a large gap in the connection between Founders 3, our students, and the college. And in that triangle, if you will, there needs to be a reconnection of how we make these things happen. Where someone within those 3 points, there's access where people can have a conversation with this individual, that individual, that individual. I know you talked about bi-weekly conversations. Are there residents of the college or at Westtown Green involved in those processes? Are they able to disseminate the information to other people? And are we able to manage some of these personalities, et cetera? So I think the questions have been asked. You can respond anyway to that. I just wanted to lay it out that there is obviously a communication challenge. And our, I guess, prized possession, if you will, as a college are those that attend here and live at Westtown Green. And so how are we best accommodating these individuals in the multi ways that were laid out today, very eloquently, I might add. And how do we, what are the plans to move forward specifically?
I look forward to giving those answers in detail with our team, with our leadership in tow. I'll also say that as it pertains to that one individual that again, Chair Foley spoke to in regard to students knowing they can come to, it is our office. It is the Office of Student Experience. One, it is that space, but outside of that space, and outside of that space, there's also the Vice President's Office of Student Affairs as a whole and retention and completion as it stands now, that particularly triage those things in real time. We do outreach to those persons, every student in a set at these seats in particular in real time within 24 to 48 hours. And so with that, when it comes to communication, I know this is our first time for you all since December's board meeting in regard to express any type of development since that time, but there's been much. And again, to stitch 6 months into a short time and being the last thing on the agenda, I would hate to continue to belabor the point. But again, I look forward to giving you rich information and valuable information that can kind of continue to structure our current element of what has gone on in the past and what we plan to do in the future. So thank you for that, for those thoughts.
I look forward to reports of improved relationships with those who are not sitting here. Amen. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next agenda item is new business. Any new business for Committee Ramos?
Yeah, in regards to the comments that were made by Barry Omari or Bara Omari. I know that she made a presentation to this board either in November or December about those issues and they have not been addressed yet. So I just would like to see how are we going to, or how do we plan to address those needs for the downtown campus in particular? And then requested once again, if we can get some information on what are the initiatives that we're doing with HSI. And I have more information to share with you.
Okay, let me make note of those.
I know that we're getting numbers, but I want to know what we have been doing to achieve that.
Okay, anyone else?
Just following up on the open comment statement. I didn't see it on the agenda, so I didn't know whether or not I needed to bring it up in new business, because it's still a part of the community education. So I just wanted to know whether or not we needed to add it back to the agenda, or was it
I'm
just
sorry,
coming back?
add what back to the agenda?
The ESL community education thing. So, and this afternoon we heard from faculty chair person who spoke specifically about the needs of downtown. And because we didn't have the community education as board monitoring on this agenda, I didn't know whether or not it needs to be re-brought up, or was it just like a month that we didn't get a report?
We'll ask to make sure we have a status report at the next board meeting. directors online, anything to add for new business in the future? Director Baker? Okay,
Second what she said.
so, given that our presidential search decisions are supposed to be basically over by the end of next week, I expect you'll all have 215 hours a week you can add to whatever you're doing for MATC. There are two things I would like to talk about and get some input from you before the next meeting. One is we've had some conversation about the need to do some updating and upgrades to our accreditation training. And we
Are we on a board item that we're having a discussion?
no, I'm just telling you what I'm gonna do for
Is this
next
new
for new
business?
business.
Is
This is
this-
new business,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to discuss that next time.
Okay, thank you.
And try to have some specific proposals in mind. We assuming everything gets approved at the state level, we have the luxury of having no changes to the board for this next cycle, so we don't have to start with anyone from ground zero. We can start with what we do know and move from there. So I want to have a discussion about that. If you have any thoughts about that, how it should be done, please let me know before the next meeting, because say 2 weeks before. The second thing is Director Baker suggested today that we have an annual committee, if you will, to talk about budgetary items. We did start some conversation a couple of meetings ago about whether we are happy with the current committee of the whole structure, if we want to have some ad hoc committees on specific issues that we haven't been addressing because we've been so busy with a couple other things the last few months. Again, if you have any thoughts about ad hoc committee topics or have any thoughts about whether you think we should go back to a formalized subcommittee, please get those comments to me by the middle of May so we can have a conversation about them next time. Okay. All right, future events announcements. Commencement is the weekend of May 17th to 19th. Date and time to be determined based on playoff results.
Let's move it.
And I understand that Marquette University has the same problem a week earlier. So please be flexible. And again, we had great turnout for the last commencement. It'd be great if we had another great turnout this time. Our next official board meeting is regular meeting is May 28th at 4:30 p.m. in this very room. And with that, we have come to the end of our agenda, except for the closed session.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I move that the district board convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss item 12A presidential search discussion. The board may reconvene into open session, take action on matters discussed in closed session under item 2A if necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion before we take the roll call? We have to take a roll call on this vote, so let's do that. And we will take a short break afterwards.
Director Najib,
Yes.
Director Owen Moore,
Yes.
Director Pence,
Aye.
Director Baker,
How can I follow that? Aye.
Director Burris. Director King,
Aye.
Director Menez Ramos.
Aye.
Director Marlon Kunde.
Aye.
Director Fuller.
We
No.
will take 10 minutes, come back for our closed session.
And now we have to sit in the session for a